Okay.
Calling to order the first regular meeting of the Albany Unified School District Board of Education for the 2020-21 school year on Tuesday, August 11th. It's 7:05 p.m. I wanted to take just a second to welcome all of you to our first regular board meeting. And we don't enter this year with the usual excitement. The world is in the middle of a raging pandemic, and we are all concerned about our world, our community, and the safety of those that we love. That concern is broad. For our students, we're not only concerned with their physical safety, but also with their learning and their emotional health. If we can reflect for a moment that our strength lies in this shared concern and in our hope that we will end this school year in a very different place than where we are now at its beginning. Our togetherness and shared concerns and hopes is our greatest asset in getting through this in the best possible way. So thank you for joining us tonight and for standing together. Ms. Shen, may we have a roll call?
Yes. Board President Trutain?
Here.
Vice President Duran?
Here.
Trustee Clark?
Here.
Trustee Doss?
Here.
Trustee Hinckley?
Here.
Superintendent Wells? Student Board Member Mala?
Here.
And Student Board Member-elect Corzo Clark?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move to item 2 on our agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please feel free to join in. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Student Board Member Mala and Student Board Member-elect Corzo Clark, would you please read the AUSD mission and vision statement as well as our meeting norms, please?
Yes. The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to creating comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Our meeting norms are to 1, maintain a focus on what is best for our students. 2, to ensure a safe environment for all views to be expressed, treating each other, staff, and the public respectfully. 3, to endeavor to find common solutions to issues through collaboration without sacrificing one's belief in what is best for students. And 4, to make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind while others are allowed to express their points of view.
Thank you very much, student board members. That brings us to item 5. There was no action taken in closed session. And moves us to item 6, approval of agenda. A board, are there any changes to the agenda that you would like to suggest? Okay.
I'll move that we approve the agenda.
Okay.
I second.
Okay. For all of our virtual meetings, every vote is by roll call. So Ms. Shin, if I can ask for a roll call vote, and that should begin with our student board members, and then Trustee Hinckley.
Student Board Member Mala,
Yes.
and then Trustee Hinckley,
Yes.
Trustee Doss,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Vice President Duran,
Yes.
and President Trutain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We're at item number 7 on our agenda, approval of the consent calendar. Board, are there any comments on the consent calendar? If not, if we can get a motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I second, Ms. Mala.
Okay. Given a motion and a second, we will move to a roll call vote on accepting the consent calendar.
Student Board Member Mala,
Yes.
Trustee Doss,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Vice President Duran,
Yes.
President Trutain,
Yes.
and Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And that brings us to our agenda item number 8, superintendent and board member reports. Dr. Wells, I hand it to you.
Thank you, President Trutain. I would have in just a moment just 4 items to report on. You know, it's important to talk about our past, our present, but it's equally important, I think, to take a peek at our future. And tonight I have a short clip of about a minute of what's happening with our Ocean View rebuild, the project that is currently taking place. And I think it's important for the board and the community to see where we're at. And that will pop up in just a minute. But while we're waiting for the video to pop up, I have to tell you that it's on schedule as planned, and schools should be ready for opening fall of 2021. And here's a glimpse. That was a brief update on the Ocean View rebuilt project. And I hope that provided some insight to where we are and how we are laying the foundation, both academically and both with our buildings and our infrastructure. So just wanted to have a glimpse, and we would try to keep you updated on our rebuilds throughout the district. Here, I want to spend a moment sharing with the board and the community our district organizational chart moving forward for the 2020-2021 school year. As you can see, at the very top is our chiefs, our school board, who is responsible for the district and the superintendent with the day-to-day operations. And so you can see it lists our board in the order of rank and file: board president, vice president, and then our trustees above me, and then the superintendent. And then you can see our cabinet with our chief business official, along with our chief human resource, executive director, and then our assistant superintendent. And their primary responsibilities, those are what we call essential duties. And of course, we know they do much more than that. But I wanted to make sure the board and the community had a glimpse of the organizational chart. Let me call your attention to an area that we will be talking about a little later on today in our meeting. And that is, if you look at the executive director of student services, Alexia Ritchie, she will remain over special ed. We're hoping to get a director of special ed, and we'll have conversation about that later. She would still be over and responsible for the, be part of her wheelhouse special ed. She does not leave that, but she add additional support. And so she would be responsible for the special ed director, student services, enrollment, attendance and SARB 504, mental health services, along with district and school safety plans, and preschool program. And so that's what we have moving forward. And so I think we can take that off and go back to the superintendent report and item number 3. I want to spend a moment or so talking about the district-wide goals as a reminder. We have 3 main goals: student achievement, and what that include also it means closing the achievement and opportunity gaps as our number 1 primary goal. Number 2, we would have the whole child. Now, what does that mean? That means making sure we take care of our whole child, both the mental and physical well-being, ranging from counseling services to enrichment programs and to many opportunities. And then our final goal is communication. How do we communicate, which is very complex, in a way that's meaningful and helpful for both to our community and our staff? And so this being the 3 main goals, we make sure that we don't have this as just rhetoric, that we adequately fund the 3 goals. We currently fund student achievement, and we fund the whole child, but we don't fund communication. And so I will be bringing back shortly how best to do that. But I just wanted to kind of signal what's coming ahead to make sure our goals are not just rhetoric and verbiage, but it's really some meat and potatoes behind that. And then finally, item number 4 of the superintendent report tonight is just sharing with you the principals retreat that took place last week, 2-day retreat. We provided training on student achievement through an equity lens. And so how do we make sure we look at student achievement and student needs through an equity lens? Meaning that we don't take from others, but we add to those students who are in need of additional support in a very meaningful way. We also looked at a cycle of continuous improvement. Addressing what that means. That means that we have ongoing data, both pre-assessments that we're in the process of gearing up for the opening of school, and that we have interim assessments throughout and building an assessment database so that data informs and drives our foot state. And data has to be the engine that makes the car go. It has to be the engine that makes the district go, because we can't continue to expect something different by doing, as you know, the same thing over and over. Currently, when we look at our data, I want to be clear about one thing. We have a lot of high-performing students in our districts, and they come from all walks of life. We have high-performing students when you talk about ethnicity: white, brown, Asian, African-American. So we have in that high-performing group kids from every ethnicity. But we also look at our groups as a whole. And as our groups as a whole, our current data tells us that our 2 lowest performing groups that need to start making significant progress, meaning we need to move the needle, is our special education group and our African Americans. And our African Americans are performing currently as a group below our special ed students. And so we have to be intentional about our plans moving forward. I think JFK said it best: "He who fails to plan, plans to fail." So this year, we're going to do something drastically different, and we're going to have plans that are intentional around our subgroups that need to have the needle moved, so that we don't just close the achievement gap, but we work towards eliminating it. And I'm going to challenge us as a group, as a governance team, that we spend our time and energy focusing on our students' achievement and abilities. And so one of the things I'm calling for is a superintendent task force around student achievement, closing the achievement and opportunity gaps. And so you will hear me coming back to the board talking about a superintendent task force that would be made up of members of various people in our communities, some of our teaching and classified staff, and a board member too. I know Trustee Doss has talked about this periodically, and I'm going to reach out to Trustee Doss in public and ask him to consider having the opportunity to not just talk about it, but to really be about this work. And so I would ask him to consider, and here in public, to consider chairing this superintendent student achievement task force. And so more to come. Board President Trutain, that's going to conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wells. Normally, well, I have no report for tonight. Normally, we would move to Vice President Durham, but since you just mentioned Trustee Doss, I wonder if we might mix things up a bit and go straight to him. Trustee Doss, would you like to report?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And Ms. Sien, if you could bring up that for me. I just wanted to have everybody take a look at this. I'm going to read a statement that I prepared, but I just wanted to have this image up, and just you can focus in on that as I read my statement. One moment. All right. Comfort is the enemy of achievement. That is what we often fall into after tragic events in this country. Everyone is upset and they voice their compassion for what happens, and then we go right back to how it has always been. The achievement gap has a similar tune. We talk about how upsetting it is to see these test scores and hear the stories of Black families in the district being treated as less than, but that's it. And we go right back to business as usual. We owe it to our students to change that thinking. Black Lives Matter is not just about the murder of Black people at the hands of police. It's about the overall racial injustices of Black people across this country. Black lives must matter in the classroom, in the boardroom, in work meetings, and everywhere else in our society, not just the places that are convenient. Change is not something that is going to come easy. It's something that we have to work at over time. What I mean by this is that the change will sometimes be painful, it will sometimes be expensive, and it will require each of us to look inside ourselves at things that we have not looked at before. If the work was easy, then it would be fixed already and there would be no gap. I'm not saying that I have all the answers, because I don't. What I'm saying is that we need to be intentional about the work that needs to be done. Our goal is to specifically help improve the achievement gap and the social emotional environment of the Black students in the AUSD school district. We all know other groups suffer in many ways. This task force will distinctly focus on this often forgotten group. Throughout my years in the district, I have seen several groups work on some of these issues, such as the Black Parent Advisory Group, the LCAP, and ACT, all of which are valuable to the district. So I'm planning to use the knowledge that was learned from those committees to help to implement change that we want to see in the district. And I'm challenging everybody tonight to jump into this fight with me so we can truly make the change needed for our students. And so with all that being said, I accept the invitation from Dr. Wells and will be happy to chair that group.
Thank you, Trustee Doss. That's an exciting development for the district. Vice President Duran, your report?
Yes. Once again, I just wanted to remind the community about the census. It's been decided to move it upward. We're going to be closing sooner than expected. However, Albany's doing pretty good in the sense that we're higher than most cities in the county. We're at approximately 71% of everyone in Albany has completed their census, but we still have a little ways to go. Still a quarter of the folks here in Albany need to complete their census. So once again, it's a reminder, and if everybody could please remind others, have you completed your census? That would be really good. We are starting a new school year. It feels pretty bad, but the optimistic things I could say are two. One is it was really nice to see the ocean view rebuild photos, and I have to definitely drive by or walk by and check it out in person. So that's exciting. And to imagine that in another year, which seems so far off, but in another year, there'll be hopefully little kids going back to that school, which should be really beautiful. And the second comment is, as we start this new year, I'm really excited about student initiatives this year, and our two school board trustees. I'm really looking forward to working with them on a number of initiatives, and also inviting Albany High students and other students to come and make our lives a little bit more bearable by inspiring us with your ideas and actions this school year. So welcome to new student-elect Leo Corso Clark, and of course, always to Audrey Mala.
Thank you, Vice President Duran. We move now to an update from Trustee Clark.
I have no report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. And that brings us to a report from Trustee Hinckley.
I have a couple of things I just wanted to mention that people might be interested in. One is that most people know the city has tasked the Social and Economic Justice Committee with working on issues of racism in Albany, in particular around policing. And this Thursday is the first meeting of the working group to develop a community policing and relations task force. So you can find the information on the city's website for that meeting. And then there's another meeting for the commission itself next week. And the second thing is, for those who are following the ethnic studies curriculum development, a revised curriculum is available now on the website of the, I don't know the best way to share a link, but it's on the Instructional Quality Commission for the California Department of Education. And also this Thursday is a meeting/hearing where the committee will vote on whether to adopt the changes that were proposed in response to public comment. So we got a lot of comments on the ethnic studies curriculum. So I know there are people out there sort of following this process, and just wanted to make sure people know there's another chance for public comment, and to ensure that people's ideas for what belongs in an ethnic studies curriculum make it through the process and the vote on Thursday. And then lastly, I just wanted to thank Dr. Wells for the email that was sent out with an update about the school year, and in particular, the comments about people forming pandemic pods, or maybe the terminology has changed. But just, I think in light of what we've been talking about with the achievement gap, I think it's always important for families to be mindful that a lot of the individual decisions we make in a context in which opportunity is not distributed equally can contribute to that structure being maintained or even worsened. And I'm excited hear about possibilities for us to use this year to really focus on equity rather than allowing the pandemic to sort of drive inequality further, as it has in a lot of arenas of public life already. So I just wanted to thank Dr. Wells for reinforcing that to our community.
Thank you, Trustee Hinckley. Normally our student board members give us a report that includes a lot of the events that are happening at our various school sites. With school not yet starting, I just want to open the floor to them to give whatever update they care to.
Thank you, President Shutain. Yeah, we have a report tonight. So opening day activities for Albany High School and McGregor are on Thursday, August 20th, and it'll be online and will include details of remote learning and how it will be different from the spring semester. There'll be a freshman and new family expectations of teaching, and student leadership groups will be working with new students and freshmen to welcome them to the high school. And an email was sent out to all AHS and McGregor families with more information on this. And then the Albany High School 2020 yearbook will be distributed on Monday, August 17th in front of the high school, and safety precautions, including masks, physical distancing, and sanitizing will be taken to distribute those.
The high school counseling department earlier this month gave a presentation over Zoom to rising seniors on how to navigate the college application process during the COVID-19 pandemic. The presentation covered filling out applications, updates on standardized testing and credit recovery amidst distance learning, making up A through G course credits, and applying for financial aid. And then lastly, the presentation for the Albany chapter of Diversify Our Narrative has been moved to the next school board meeting on August 25th, in which they will present on ways to diversify Albany's English curriculums in grades K through 12. In case you're here for that, that'll be next meeting on the 25th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a surprising amount of stuff going on, even this early in August. Thanks. That brings us to our agenda item 10, persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. The way this works is if you raise your hand, you can speak on an issue that is not on this meeting's agenda, and we'll see if we have anyone who wants to make that type of a public comment. Let me see. I believe we have one comment for matters not on the agenda. I see one hand raised. When you will need to unmute yourself after you join the meeting.
Excuse me, President Shutain. Is it 2 minutes or 3 minutes today?
Okay, I think we can go ahead. We have just two hands raised, so I believe that we can provide 3 minutes.
And I will.
Oh wait, there's three. There's the list is growing. Please accept 2 minutes for the public comment, and we'll try to go with that. Okay.
Okay, so our first speaker is you family.
Okay, hello?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Dina Yu, and I am teaching second year this year at Ocean View Elementary. I'm speaking tonight to urge the district and the board to take action with looking at our current class sizes in the second grade at Ocean View, as well as across the elementary schools in the district. I say that because I'm not aware of all the class size numbers, but I have heard that other classes are full as well. Currently, Ocean View second grade has 2 classes with 27 students enrolled and 1 class with 26 students enrolled. As teachers trying our best to teach in a distance learning structure, 26 to 27 students in a primary class is extremely challenging and not supportive of the students. If you just consider how many students fit on a screen on a Zoom meeting, the maximum number is 24. That means in a meeting, there are students who are not on the second page out of view. What message does that send students if they cannot be seen? With younger students, teaching in small groups is more effective. Having too many students impacts the number of groups formed or the level of attention given to individuals. I'm not aware of how a budget is determined from one year to the next, but I have heard from the parent community that they believe that our class sizes will be smaller this year because the budget is supposed to be based on last year's enrollment numbers. Instead of keeping class sizes small, what we have is class sizes filled to the maximum number to seem to save money. A few years ago, I spoke at a board meeting because we had filled first grade classes at Ocean View with 27 to 28 students. The district thought that based on previous year's trends, we would have students not show up at the start of the year, and they wanted to wait to see if they showed up. They ignored our urges to not fill the classes, and after school started, we found ourselves scrambling to find an additional teacher. And it didn't work out. We hired a teacher who was not qualified and then had to find an additional teacher. I know this experience created a negative emotional and academic impact on the students of that class. I don't even want to consider the possibility of this happening again, especially in a pandemic and especially with distance learning. Hiring a teacher last minute after the start of school will be damaging to our kids. Having class sizes of 26 to 27 is not fair. I urge you to please reconsider opening up more classes to bring our class sizes down.
Thank you, Ms. Yu. I appreciate your comment.
President, because of the nature of that issue, that's really enormous. That's something I and my team will look into. We are committed to having small class sizes. So I would revisit in terms of primary with that number I heard, 27 to 28. That's not okay. And we would concur with the speaker tonight, but I think I owe the board a report and an update on that issue because we value small class sizes.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Let's move to our next public speaker.
Our next speaker is Beth Dunn. Beth?
Can you hear me? Yes. Hi, thank you for taking my call. I'm also a second grade teacher at Ocean View, and I'm speaking to the same issue as Ms. Yu, class sizes. And I really appreciate hearing from you, Dr. Wells, that you're in favor of small class sizes. So I won't repeat a lot of what she had to say. I just wanted to reiterate that, we are talking about our youngest learners, and to hear that the class sizes in the upper grades are smaller than the class sizes in the lower grades, it's concerning. And to please honor the fact that we are trying to do small group instruction, which will be very difficult in this setup. So I appreciate you revisiting the class sizes and hopefully adjusting them accordingly. So thank you for hearing my point of view.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn.
Our next speaker is Dale Bloom.
Hello. Please forgive me if what I'm about to speak about is on the agenda and I was not aware. I've tried to read it while at work and did not find the items. We've regularly followed your board meetings, and I have a couple questions that you can answer at any time. I would like to know what the district has done as far as addressing the individual schools to set up classrooms for the potential return to in-person schooling, such as plexiglass for the teachers, desk moves to accommodate the spacing. As far as those measures go, what have been accomplished so far and what's on the agenda to be accomplished? I also hope that you guys are addressing the teachers teaching from the classroom, where the materials that we as taxpayers have provided for them to use to teach students are readily available for them, as well as their IT support and any other services they would need to assist in teaching our kids. Also, in regards to Dr. Wells' recent statement for not forming pods, I feel like we're put it as parents in a really rough spot. Primary goals is safety for our children. Learning is right up there at the top. And without the formation of pods, which allows us to lean on other parents who are also working and provide childcare for us, you're actually putting our kids at increased risk And just to let you know, we have family that actually investigates child welfare and child abuse in Contra Costa County. And kids at 11 years old, at the same age as my daughter is, actually, if they're left at home during the day for more than 3 hours unsupervised, that constitutes child neglect and endangerment. So that's what the position we're being put in by the district, as far as your 240 minutes of instruction, while the parents are working like me and my wife both do. I don't like that, and I hope that's addressed. I feel it's the board's responsibility to safely educate the students, and that's a big position for all of us working parents to be in. I'll leave you with one more question. I'd like you to name one other entity of essential workers where the employer posed a survey, whether the employees were willing to go back to work or not and still get paid. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. Actually, we are going to have a section later in the meeting on the road to reopening. And you may know that the board cannot comment on matters not on the agenda, but I think that your questions will come up during our road to reopening update. So thank you very much for speaking. Our next speaker
is Jeremiah Pinguello.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, my name is Jeremiah Garrett Pinguello, and I choose to use my 3 minutes to address something that I've been talking about for over 10 years. And this refers to school zones. School zones refers to slower speeds around our schools. Maybe I suggest 15 miles per hour during drop-off and loading times, you know, at Cornell School, something like that. You got cars flying down Talbot, flying down Cornell. There's no speed bumps on those streets. The city won't even put a speed bump on Cornell to slow down traffic because there's an old folks home. And they're afraid the ambulance is going to take a half a second longer to get there. So they refuse to put up a speed bump. Well, I moved to make a motion again here 10 years later. Let's put it on the agenda and let's get school zones in our city, because I know we have a different governor now, but I have an old email from Jerry Brown. Maybe I should update it. But Jerry Brown said that if we could simply get the word school zones in our municipal code book somewhere, he could legally give our city the state school zone grant, which is $100,000 to repaint our crosswalks, to put up high visibility signs. And it pays for 10 crossing guards, which would have successfully I don't know what to say about our crossing guards. I mean,
time.
We have one more speaker.
Our final speaker is Sana B.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sana. I've been attending all the board meetings since it started, the layoff for all the paraeducator. I'm going to consider myself, I used to be paraeducator at Albany High School, but since last time we got Friday, I saw the agenda, I was really shocked because none item in the agenda shows that all the paraeducators are going to go back. So I don't want to say I'm shocked, but I'm surprised how as a paraeducator, we don't get any chance to go back. Plus, we miss the chance to go work in other school districts. The deadline for all the application, it's done. So when I saw the agenda on Friday, I started calling the other school district, and all of them, they said, "Oh, we're sorry, the position was filled." So now, with nothing to do, just to be with our kids at home and helping them with no work, it's really difficult for everybody. the only one chance we got like to work far away, South San Francisco, Stockton. And as we said, we cannot leave our kids home more than 3 hours, 4 hours for high school or even for middle school or 11 years old. It's a little bit hard. And I hope our superintendent, as he said, we're going to get everybody back, but I didn't see that happening anytime soon. And I felt so bad. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana, for speaking. That brings us to our first staff report, agenda item number 11-1, Road to Reopening Schools. Dr. Wells, do you want to introduce this item?
Yes, this item tonight, as we do every board meeting, we would have a snippet of Road to Reopening, just as a reminder of what we're doing, where we're at currently. And just some of the things we would like details tonight because we are in negotiations with our teachers, working out the details, but we are bringing you what we have. And so I'm asking you to stay hopeful and encouraged as we do this each and every board meeting. And as we try to, from this point forward, update you via various kinds of communication, at least weekly. At this time, I turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Marie Williams.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Good evening, Board President Trutain, board members, members of our community that are watching. As Dr. Wells indicated, our update this evening will be somewhat brief. Part of the reason that this presentation, the slides weren't provided in the packet that was published on Friday is that we were hoping to have some hot off the press information to share, and we don't have that today, but we will continue to update you as Dr. Wells indicated. So I want to start with this slide, which those of us who have been attending these meetings since May or June have seen this slide before, but for maybe our new families or for folks that are just tuning into our board meetings to get a sense of what our reopening plans are, I like to begin with our timeline. It's been updated even since our last meeting. At our July 14th board meeting, of course, the board approved a reopening plan that would begin with remote instruction until it was deemed safe to open in a hybrid model. And then just 3 days later, the state issued guidance around reopening plans, which essentially meant that many school districts that were planning in some way to try to open in person had to open remotely. We've had the opportunity to provide some information to parents in regards to our planning to date. And as Dr. Wells indicated, we are currently collaborating with our labor partners around what the opening of school will look like. I wanted to show this slide again to you. This comes out of SB 98. I'm calling it our remote learning blueprint, in that many of the plan components address concerns that were raised based on our spring experience. And I think we all agree that our spring experience was sort of operated in crisis mode. And this fall, we are really looking forward to providing a robust remote learning experience for all of our students. So just to sort of quickly highlight a couple of these topics, in terms of the instructional model, we know that we are moving to a remote model. We have surveyed our families to find out about their need for devices and internet connection. And I know that principals are beginning to reach out to families about making arrangements to be able to have devices for learning. In terms of student participation, we know that moving forward, there is a requirement around monitoring attendance and maintaining student engagement. And to that end, we are purchasing some software that will allow us to communicate with parents in real time, and will also help us to track the attendance of our students and provide that information to parents, in addition to our student information system, which we typically use to take attendance. Professional development, we are currently in a week of workshops for our staff. They are learning about screen recording. They are learning how to maximize their Google Drives. They are learning about how to use Google Classroom. And so I'm getting many emails from teachers every day commenting on how positive these professional learning experiences are. And so I feel really grateful that we've been able to provide that professional development for staff. And there will be more beginning next week, but I feel very gratified that teachers have had the opportunity to participate in this professional learning. We are in very uncharted waters here in terms of developing a strong remote teaching and learning praxis. And so many of our teachers we found were identifying professional development opportunities that we ourselves were not aware of. And so we're also really grateful that we have been able to make arrangements for our teachers to participate in self-directed professional development around topics that will be really helpful for them as we transition to remote learning. So many of our teachers are learning vigorously in preparation to reopen school. I did want to invite our Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education, Mrs. Ritchie, to speak a little bit about some planning that has been communicated for our families who receive special education services. So Ms. Ritchie.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Williams and Board of Education members and our community. Yes, just quickly to remind everyone, thank you, Superintendent Wells, for including that information in your communication out to families. A week from today, which is August 18th, I will be hosting a parent information webinar, and you'll see the links on our AUSD website. The intended audience is for families and students who receive special education services. There will also be some additional information for students and families who receive 504 plan services, but the intended audience is certainly geared to families who receive special education. We'll be including some planning moving forward with how to deliver services this school year, as well as additional information about the continuity learning plan, previously known as the distance learning plan. Again, that's a week from today, August 18th, from 7 to 8:30, and the Zoom information is on our AUSD website.
Great, thank you. In terms of learning loss mitigation strategies, we are working with our principals, and they are working with their site leadership teams to develop beginning of the year assessments, to think about how we might formatively assess students. We don't have summative assessment results to guide program placement or planning, but we do know that we need to assess where students are in terms of their learning as they come into the year, and we need to be able to monitor their learning throughout the year. In terms of mental health supports, our sites are beginning to think about how to leverage those staffs. We're very grateful for School Care. Because of them and their tremendous fundraising efforts, we're actually able to provide some additional mental health service at our elementary. So we're really excited about being able to do that. And then finally, I'll just say that our head chef, executive chef, I think is her title, Sabina Feinberg, is working on arranging schedules so that we can continue to provide lunches to our income eligible students. So I think this, our blueprint really allows us, I think, to provide a comprehensive program for all of our students. I want to just remind the board and community that this learning continuity and attendance plan will come to the board and to the community formally because this is a plan that needs to be adopted. And so before the end of this month is out, the community will receive some information about how they might give input. And then at our first September meeting, we would host a public hearing, which is another opportunity for input, and that this plan then needs to be adopted by the 30th of September. So more information to come on that. Remote Learning 2.0, as I said, we are gearing up to provide a robust remote learning experience for students. So we know that students will receive daily synchronous and asynchronous instruction. So that's live instruction, as well as instruction, as well as completing work while working maybe independently. We also know that there will be multiple opportunities maybe for small group work and other configurations that keep students connected to their teachers. We have here, just again, as a reference point, the minimum daily instructional minutes that students are to receive daily. And as I said earlier, we are working right now to purchase some uniform tools that we can implement system-wide so that students and also families are sort of not overwhelmed by all of the different possible methods of communication and all the different possible instructional tools. I spoke a little bit about professional development. So again, just referring to the the week that we are in right now. And then as we look ahead to next week, we will continue with professional development. Dr. Wells and also Board Member Doss spoke about this idea of keeping equity at the forefront. And so we will be leading off with and continuing throughout the year with supporting our teachers to develop an anti-racist teaching praxis, to think about equity, to center equity as they are planning their instruction. We look forward to continuing to have those conversations. And then there are a host of other topics that we plan to provide so that on the first day of school, students are welcomed as they typically are, but in this very unusual environment, and feel supported and ready to learn. We also plan to roll out supports for our families also, so that students and families can access tools. There was a question about preparations that are being made for when we return to in-person learning. And so I will say that we will be bringing very soon here a plan around health and safety protocols for when we are able to return to in-person instruction. And then the final piece also around developing daily school schedules. And as soon as those are available, we will communicate those to families. So that's my brief update. There'll be another one at the next meeting. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Assistant Superintendent Williams. I want to open it up to the board for any questions or comments the board trustees might have.
I just have a question. You sort of referred to it at the end, but you know, our next board meeting is the first day of school. What does it look like to you once negotiations are complete to let families know what that first week of school is going to be like? Because I'm sure a lot of families watching are, as am I, anxious about just to sort of know what that's going to be like. So what can families expect to hear between now and the first day of school?
Yeah, I think we're all anxious. All of us are anxious to get that piece finalized. And so as soon as those arrangements are finalized, then I can imagine that families would hear directly from their site principals about the details of those daily school schedules. Does that answer your question, Board Member Hinckley? Yeah.
Yeah.
Other school board members? Okay, we can open this up for comments. Oh, okay, so I see Vice President Duran. I'm just giving a heads up that if public wants to comment on this item, we'll hear your comments after Vice President Duran.
Okay, or should I wait till after the public comments? I'm willing to wait till after.
No, I think it could be helpful for you to go forward. Yeah.
Okay, or not. Let me begin by saying that, and it's just a simple statement that of my understanding of negotiations and where we're at the moment, I'm really disappointed and alarmed. Having said that, I, for the last week, have really been thinking about this school year. This is our first official board meeting. And, you know, honestly, I'd rather we be realistic. I really appreciate parent comments that are really grounded in reality. And I would like all of us to be the same. We know the pandemic has turned all of our worlds upside down. We're all afraid of COVID-19. And I am worried about when teachers would feel safe enough to go back to the classroom. And I just, I get discouraged, even honestly, when I hear presentations that talk about robust remote learning. I think that's impossible. We talk about remote childcare. That's ridiculous, even in terms, it's an oxymoron. And so I've really been struggling with this and trying to think outside the box. And so I have a off-the-wall proposal, which I don't think anyone will take it seriously, but it's just food for thought, because I'd like to push people more in a direction of us really being honest and really speak to the truth of what this pandemic has done for the schooling of our kids. And so in thinking about this, this is what I thought. Why don't we throw the towel in for this school year? There's not going to be a vaccine till January, February, I don't know. And by the time our kids get it, it's, I don't believe we're going to open our schools truly in a way where kids are going to be able to learn. So my thought was close the school down for this school year. Let teachers and all staff take unemployment, and the parents would get $8,000 to $9,000, whatever it is that the state provides, so that parents could use that money in a way it seems appropriate to them for their kids' schooling. Because honestly, it's parents that are stuck at home with their kids, and they're the ones that are going to have to be the teachers this year. So why don't we just give them the money? Let them have some wonderful field trips, walking in their cars, however. Let them sit down and watch educational videos and TV with the kids and have great discussions. There's all kinds of things that parents actually could do. And I know the state not going to go along with this idea, and I'm not sure the district, I don't think the district is too. But I think we need to start challenging ourselves and pushing the envelope so that we can really say what is best for our kids here in Albany. And I submit to you that remote learning is not what's best for our kids. And as long as parents have to be here with their kids in remote, and it's going to last a long time, it's not going to end on October 1st or October 15th. So why don't we just give the parents the money? $9,000 per kid. Go and educate your own kid the way you see fit. And I'm just trying to be honest with board members, with the staff, and with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Duran. We're going to go ahead and move to public comment on this item, and then we'll bring it back to the board again.
One of the board members wanted to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Trustee Doss did.
Oh, okay. Yes, please go ahead, Trustee Doss.
Thank you. I thought, since Clementina, Trustee Vice President Duran mentioned her idea, and I thought that it was, interesting, and it's something to think about. It's definitely food for thought. So I thought that was really interesting. But I did want to before we get into public comment, just also kind of second her in mentioning her disappointment. I have always imagined Albany as a district that leads by example. We set the bar here very high, in my opinion, in that other districts look to us, seeing that bar set high and strive to get to where we are. And so I would encourage all of us to continue to set that bar high and not set it low, because the lower we set the bar, the more the students are at a disadvantage, and the harder it is on the parents. And I can only speak for the individual families that I know, and for myself, that it is not an easy thing to live in Albany. It's expensive, and there are other struggles that come along with it, living in a small town, things of that nature. But people do it and they figure it out, and they like live with family members, and there's 10 people in the house, and they do all these different things to try and like figure out what they can do so that their kids can go to school here. And people sacrifice. They take jobs that they might not really want. They skip vacations that they might want to go on. And people make all these sacrifices so that their students can go to school here. And they do that because of the quality education that Albany provides. And I know that it is easier said than done, but we have to still provide that education that everybody is fighting for and that we ask everybody to fight for. And so we have to figure that out, and everybody's gonna have to be uncomfortable, and things are gonna be tough, and we have to find solutions for that, which I think we're all trying to do. But so far, I will say that there's some work to be done, because where we are right now is unacceptable.
Thank you, Trustee Doss. I'm seeing a few more hands up, so we'll move to public comment on this item, and then we will bring it back to the board. Uh-oh, did I miss another trustee? Any trustee comments before we move to public comment? Okay, let's open public comment for 2 minutes. I see a number of hands raised. Please go ahead.
Our first speaker is Dale Bloom.
Hello, this is Dale again. I have another follow-up regarding Dr. Wells's email with the learning equality in the pods. And I also heard you guys talk about the road to reopening as far as teachers who have completed some professional development. I didn't hear that all teachers have completed, or it's been a requirement that they complete professional development. So I would like to know if they have all been required to, because if they haven't, that creates a huge inequity and balance of our child's education, which equity of education to me comes after safety, as I already spoke about previously with our kids having to be left alone. Vice President Duran, I think your idea with giving the parents their money back so we can properly apply it to places that will educate our children is a fantastic idea. I applaud you, and I applaud Trustee Doss for the work you're doing and actually trying to represent our kids and get our kids educated through whatever means possible, even if it's not through your school district. I'm disappointed to hear that you guys are disappointed in negotiations with the teachers. Albany is an expensive district. We've loved being there, mainly because of the chances to get our child highly educated. And now at this point, it seems like it's just kind of thrown in the towel with the education. I can't imagine the community and the housing values and just the community in whole staying as nice as it is with the lack of dedication to education that's currently going on. So thank you once again for your idea. Hopefully it gets acted upon for that $8,000 to $9,000 to be returned to us. I would also go as far as saying that I would take a day to go into the classroom in our schools to teach any kids that would show up. And that's how dedicated I am to my child's education. And I'm sure there's a lot of other parents that would take on that risk or burden that many other essential services provide every other day. And we take that risk to go educate our children because it's that important to us. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. We're going to move to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Layla.
Hi, my name is Layla, and I have a daughter that's going to be attending the 6th grade Albany Middle School. And I just first wanted to thank those that are really trying to think outside of the box. I mean, one thing I just heard Trustee Doss kind of touch upon after Vice President Duran spoke with her idea was that we can do better, because I think everyone that comes to this city probably primarily comes to educate their child here. And I think we have sometimes, the larger any entity is, the more difficult it is to get control and to make things happen and to try things outside of the box. But we're a much smaller district, and a smaller community, and we should be able to try and do those things and have an impact, a positive impact. So I just would encourage that line of thinking to continue. One of the main reasons I just wanted to talk quickly was, like I said, our daughter's going into the 6th grade. And I know there's been talk and feelings around pods. I think the 6th grade class is unique in that it is the one class in the entire school district that funnels in from 3 different schools and creates a lot of unfamiliarity and newness for kids that first week of school, first month of school, until they get acclimated. And I know that a lot of thinking is typically, let's mix the kids up, get them different experiences, which I think is great for their development in a typical climate. I think this climate is very different. And given those of us that have to go to work and are already struggling with how we're going to have children at a very questionable age be home to make sure they're getting the education, if we can maintain, or if the district can encourage the schools, or especially Albany Middle School, to, when they're making these assignments, I'm hoping they haven't been made already, to keep Cornell kids with Cornell kids, to keep Ocean View kids with Ocean View kids. All we have at this point is each other to rely on, and the kids themselves. It's not even just the parents. The kids have relationships with people, and they're going into a grade where they still need such a high level of support, and their academics is becoming so much more challenging for them. So I would just hope that maybe we can be unconventional this year and try to keep kids with kids they're familiar with.
Thank you, Lila. Thank you. We'll move to our next speaker, Damon Levy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, hi. This is Jeff Gullup. I have a son that goes to Cornell, and something that has not been addressed in any detail whatsoever was what the scalability of the road to reopening is. In other words, as COVID rates rise or fall, what scalability or contingency plans and fluidity does the school district have for the fluctuations in infection rates? I believe it needs to be discussed before the proposed start of school, before potentially exposing my child, who may or may not carry it, to my household that has a higher risk, older adults at home who are currently living there. The superintendent spoke last week about a medical opt-out form, and I will consider that, but I also don't want this to sacrifice my son's education by missing out on invaluable in-person teaching. Where is my opt-in option for distance learning that can have the same impact as a hybrid learning system? Additionally, recently NPR reported that over 97,000 children in the US have contracted COVID-19 over the last 3 weeks. Please consider these, among other statistics, in your decision-making process and help parents in turn make their decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cullip.
Our next speaker is Damon Levy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for taking my comment. I'd like to, first of all, reinforce and support what the parent, Mr. Bloom, said. I think he's saying what a lot of parents are thinking. I encourage you to listen to his comments over again. I agreed with pretty much everything he said. I want to applaud members Dawson, Duran. I do think that this is a really good situation to start getting both, looking at what's reality out there and then thinking about it from a problem-solving standpoint versus just hoping and wishing. I don't know if returning money to parents is very realistic, but I applaud the fact that there's actually new thoughts out there. I'm really disappointed in the teachers union. I hope they understand that their positions this past summer have really eroded their goodwill. It's a impressive group of people in general, but the way that they are negotiating and positioning themselves is not something that I can behind. And I'd really like to ask you to stop pandemic pod equity. I think that the real best equity be opening in-person learning, and just as the other teachers said, we have to do these things in order to support the fact that most of us have to go to work and so I just I understand the position, but stop lecturing us, please. And just being realistic that in person happen, requiring, and I'm sure that this is difficult in negotiations, but as much live synchronous teaching as possible for the elementary school children, because I just don't think that asynchronous learning really works for them. So thank you for your time and listening to my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. We appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Nisha Fernandez Seshadri.
And I want to add that while Nisha's getting on, that Ms. Long will be our last public speaker on this item, and then we'll go back to the board.
Hi, I'm Krishnan Seshadri, Nisha's husband. We have two kids entering first grade. I really wanted to mention and commend Board VP Durant's position on the learning from home, because we don't have a schedule set out, and based off of the increase in cases across California, it doesn't seem as though going back to school is likely this calendar year, and most likely next. And we've had to juggle our schedule around figuring out what to do with our children without even knowing what the remote schedule was going to be like. And given the fact that first graders, I question the efficacy of, given their attention span, the efficacy of having an online classroom for 230 minutes. That's a long time. And so, I think my point being is that we've already put the wheels going in trying to figure out an alternate plan, and really want support. If the schedule's set out, I don't want to be guardrailed by it, like forced into a certain schedule. And like the idea, I wasn't even thinking about us taking over that component, which we already have been. So I would really like to explore, for the board to explore that, given our current situation. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Sarah Howler.
Hi there, good evening, board. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Given the Road to Reopening report, I was just wondering if there were any updates that could be provided by the district in regards to any plans for childcare services that may be offered to any portion of our Albany community. At a last board meeting, or perhaps in a superintendent communication, there was talk about perhaps some partnerships with local agencies like the YMCA and perhaps others. And I'm wondering if that's any information that's available to share with the parent community, as we're all, like many parents said, grappling with how to make our lives work with working and caring for our children while they do distance learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haller.
Wait till I tell you I'm muted. I'm muted.
Okay. Our next speaker is Shannon Huffaker. Oh, just a second. Okay. Shannon, we're going to skip you for just a second, but we'll come back to you. We just have some tech issues here. Our next speaker is Olga Miranda.
Yes, good evening.
While Ms. Miranda is getting on, I'll say we will have Ms. Huffaker and Ms. Long, and that will conclude the public comment for this topic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Olga Miranda. I am the mother of an incoming 10th grader at Albany High School. I've been hearing for hours. I've been on these marathon meetings as much as all of you. And I want to thank you guys for your hard work and your contributions in trying to alleviate some of the headaches that we've had to confront, not just as our individual families,
but as all the families of Albany School District. Now, I just want to be able to say that I think that a few things. Number one, our children, everybody's talking about equity, and it seems to be the buzzword, the popular word that everybody's capturing and using in their vernacular now. But I just want to be able to say, let's not be hypocrites about how there's been a disservice and a huge, huge gap in the education process at Albany High School with children who have IEPs, 504s, and how they've been left behind. Our summer school experience with my child can only be described as a nightmare, number one. New software was introduced very last minute. There was not enough preparation on behalf of the district to offer to our children. But not just that, to the comments that one of the board members just made, Vice President Duran, that's really unrealistic. And you cannot at the same time compliment the teachers on how their hard work, but then slap them with the other hand and say, you know what, why don't you guys take a back seat? Because I think I can do this job better than you can. We are all going through this, but I don't see anyone on this board saying we have to do more for children that have already been left behind since last year to be able to support children in special ed. So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, and I just want to be able to make sure you cannot say and argue equity when you are not, and you at the same time you're leaving a lot of children behind, including my child. So I'm asking all of you that yes, it's a tough position that we are all in, but it's very hypocritical as a family of color that this is a position we're being put in, and now you want to attack the teachers. So that is not okay.
Thank you, Ms. Miranda.
Okay, our next speaker is Shannon Huffaker, but we have to promote her to a panelist. So Shannon, we're going to let you in as a panelist. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. I just wanted to say, I think you probably are hearing from a number of parents who are pretty alarmed by the comments from trustees Doss and Duran, because it feels like probably the first honest commentary that we've had from the district staff about the status of negotiations. And I want to say definitively, like I appreciate the candid response from Trustee Duran. I do not favor defunding the schools and passing out money for people. But I appreciate the call to think outside the box and to be honest about what we're talking about when we're talking about distance learning. I'd also like us to think of school staff as essential workers. I myself am an essential worker. I know what this entails and I know what's being asked, but we ask this of grocery store workers, we ask this of delivery workers, and I think staff and school staff are the same. And I'd like to point out that while we are seeing changes in COVID-19 epidemiology every day in terms of what masks do and don't work, what age kids have what viral loads in their noses, something that hasn't really changed is that outside activity in small groups is much safer. And I'd really like us to turn our attention to how we can bring kids on campus, especially our youngest and most vulnerable learners, but really all kids, bring them on campus and teach them outside. This is not that hard. It's not something that needs to be dismissed out of hand, which I think it has been, unfortunately. We can get a lot done for people outside. It's not the same. It wouldn't be the same. Maybe we would have to cancel classes when it rains, but these are things that can be done. And this is, I would really, really like us to put our focus on that instead of focusing on pods and all these other things. Love to get some kids on campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huffaker. Our last speaker for this item is going to be Ms. Long.
Rebecca Long.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Long. I'm a parent of a middle schooler and a high schooler, and I would echo the prior comments of just my appreciation for how hard you guys are working, and yeah, it's a pretty thankless job right now. I did just want to jump into the conversation in response to Trustee Duran's comments. Professionally, I work on legislation in Sacramento, not around education, but I do know that, that idea is just unfortunately not realistic. There's no way that Albany could unilaterally take its funding and provide it back to parents. It would require a change in state law and, would be something that would obviously be extremely controversial. So I also appreciate thinking outside the box. I think that was what you were trying to do, but we all as parents and teachers and administrators really need to be focusing on what are realistic solutions. And I think that the prior comment about can we do more teaching outside, those are some creative ideas, but we're not going to be able to take state funding and provide it as a check to parents. So I'd encourage you to really try to focus again on realistic ideas. Again, thank you for your hard work, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Long. I just wanted to bring it back to the board because perhaps board trustees might want to echo some of the questions that were asked by our public and ask them of staff. So if you'd care to do that, now is the time. We take no action on this item. This is a staff report only. We will have another staff report on this at our next meeting.
President Trutain, can I jump in?
Please do, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to cede my time to the two people who are still waiting to speak.
Okay, we can do that. Okay, so we're going to extend 2 minutes each to Ms. Thies and Mr. Pinguello.
Ms. Thies, Cheryl Thies.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties. It's the story of our lives. I just have a question for the board that I know you probably can't answer, but I'm wondering if the district is keeping track of how many families are disenrolling in order to homeschool or use other alternative approaches, because this just isn't workable for them. And just to urge the board and the district to be as flexible as possible and keep all options on the table. And I also want to support one of the things that Ms. Miranda said. Some of the solutions that have been offered just haven't been based on adequate knowledge of how to do this. And this is a time for really strong leadership and expectations about the quality of the services you're delivering. So I hope that we don't get too caught up in the minutia of what one thing is right or wrong. We need to support our teachers. We need to retain our paras. We need to retain our families, or Albany's going to be left in really dire straits when this is over. And I would hate to see that happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Thies.
Our final speaker is Jeremiah Pinguello.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You deserve to be commended for donating your time. Parents want to speak and everything, and it sounds like a lot of confusion. You still don't know how to open school, and it's supposed to start in a couple weeks. You know, I say we take advantage of the weather while it's not raining. You know, for these preschool, elementary kids, you know, learn something about how to grow gardens. You know, all this pandemic stuff has got everybody scared. And everybody forgot how to read a book. You know, that's what learning is. Read books, you know, and so we need a different way of learning. Okay, just for 1 year. That's all it is. Different way of learning for 1 year. So yeah, more field trips, outside classes. You guys want to stick everybody indoors, but if you don't have space, you know, the Memorial Building is another venue, and the library and the recreation center. There's a lot of venues indoors when it starts to rain to space these kids out. You know, have 10 per classroom, social distancing. But I say we take advantage of this weather and have outdoor classes down at the Bulb, have them learn about butterflies and dragonflies and ladybugs, and how to trace leaves with a pencil, and, you know, just fun stuff. you guys are making this too stressful for these kids to go back to school. So make it fun, you know, for these kids, you know? So thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I open it back to the board if board members have any further questions on this staff report. Go ahead, Trustee Hinckley.
I have a comment and then maybe a question or a direction for the next report. I don't want people to get the impression that the district has thrown in the towel on remote learning or that we don't think it can be successful. I think that we all know it's not ideal, but we know that teachers and staff and the staff, you know, our district office has been working very hard to make remote learning as successful as it can be. So I just don't want to leave the impression that somehow we're not working really, really hard to figure out how to make remote learning work. And the other thing that I think would be helpful to get from staff, you know, so now we're really focused on how to make this initial period of remote learning work, but then we're left with this question of what are our options for returning kids back to school in some form. And I think it would be helpful at the next meeting maybe to get some updates about the sort of evolving state policies around that. So what are our options for using outdoor space or other spaces to have social activities or support students who are particularly in need of in-person learning, you know, those sort of priorities, and then phasing into the ultimately possibly a hybrid option, which I agree seems maybe unlikely this academic year. But I think it would be helpful for us to know what those options are through the waiver process, which appears to be evolving every week with new guidance about what kinds of activities can happen, what the county requirements will be, just so there can be some clarity for the community about what kind of planning will be required once we get over this sort of period of figuring out what remote learning looks like for everybody. I would certainly benefit from that, an update on that, whatever the status is August 25th, around things like waivers and small groups and outdoor spaces, et cetera. I think that's all I have to say.
Trustee Hinckley, duly noted. Thank you very much.
I just want to, Dr. Wells, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is at this time, Alameda County is offering no waivers.
That is correct, only because they didn't have a criteria. We are anticipating in the upcoming weeks, they would have completed their criteria and then we'll consider waivers.
Well, that makes Trustee Hinckley's suggestion really timely. If that process is clarified in the next couple of weeks, I know that our community would like to hear about it as soon as possible. Yeah. And I see Vice President Durand, please go ahead and make your comment.
Okay, I certainly want to support, and not support Sarah, but agree with her. I do recognize that the staff is working really hard to pull this together in as sane a fashion and as workable a fashion as possible. I just think that, once again, we need to be realistic and call things out as they are. I do appreciate parents reminding us of some of the ideas that were out there in July in the Road to Recovery committees about outdoor learning and how that could be included or focused. And certainly the other element that is critical is the social emotional learning and the mental health support that we're counting on getting for the students. So I would certainly like a robust report on that from the superintendent and staff about how that's going to be part of a part of the remote learning, and if it could be much more descriptive
if that's dependent on negotiations or not. But I think the sooner we hear about that component, which should be equally half of the curriculum or half of a school day, should be much more developed and described. And the final comment is basically that, as people have already mentioned, school's in 2 weeks, and parents still don't have a clear idea of what it's going to look like in terms of minutes of synchronous and asynchronous. And so I'm hoping, Superintendent, if you could respond as to how soon there'll be much more specific detail for parents. When can they expect to hear more about what an actual school day beginning August 25th would look like?
Trustee Duran, we heard your request about the mental health update, duly noted. In terms of what to expect, we're hoping to have resolution as soon as possible. And as soon as we have that resolution, we're already at all our school sites to push, send, and communicate in a number of venues about that. We're anxious. As you know, Oakland opened without that specificity. Berkeley just signed a deal, I think, a day before school started today. And so we're trying to get to our parents much sooner than that. But we're working around the clock, and we're hoping to do that as soon as possible. And I wish I could pin it down and say we can do that 12 midnight, but we can't. But as soon as we can, we will.
Thank you, Dr. Wells and Vice President Duran. If there's no further comments from the board, we'll move on to our review and discussion items. Okay, so we now are on item 12 on our agenda, review and discussion, 12-1, position of special education director. Dr. Wells? Yes, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that the board has been under a tremendous amount of pressure, working immensely, some nights into the AM, and that this gets very tiring and stressful and sometimes overwhelming, and we are all humans. And so it's important that we all remind each other to take a deep breath and that we're really in this together, despite how frustrating it gets and how emotionally charged we become. But one good thing I like and love about this board is that they have made a commitment to put kids first, and that's our rallying cry. We can come together under that one agreement, putting our kids first. And I just wanted us to do that because it seems like every item tonight has been really full of energy and emotions and all of that. So it's okay to breathe. And sometimes it's important that we remind each other of that. I know that I appreciate when I hear from staff to say, hey, take a moment and breathe. That comment there makes a world of difference throughout my day, and I thought I'd share that with all of us. Tonight, it's a little different because we have as a review and discussion of a position, and generally speaking, recommendation of positions is in the purview of the superintendent. But what we like to do when it's something of great interest or may have some controversy, it's important to loop the board in sooner or as soon as possible and make sure the board have an opportunity to weigh in. And so this position, special ed director, is one of those unique positions because over the last 2 years, it's been like a ping pong. We have it, we don't have it. We have it, we don't have it. We need it, we don't need it. And so we need to address those issues. The purpose of the item is to address how can we need it one moment, for example, and not the next moment. The impetus behind getting rid of special ed, and I think that is a consistent mistake, and I think I have to own a piece of that of recent, despite the budget, because if special ed is a priority, it should be reflected, one, in our budget, and two, in our actions, and I have to own that. And so as we begin to learn more and more about our special ed and our unique challenges, we realize that our special ed department
have some enormous needs, needs that warrant somebody with decision-making authority to tender on a day-to-day basis. I'm competing with the train, and so bear with me. There's a number of things that happened this year. Initially, we had the governor's forecast, which was gloom and doom, and it turned out to be an SOS, same old stuff. And that was a welcome news. So his gloom and doom did not come to fruition. In addition to that, the only program that we know of that got an increase in revenues, and we were pleased for it for good reason, was special ed. And so it allowed us to look differently as we learned more about our increased challenges. I would say enormous here if we were looking at full disclosure in our special education department. And so as I grappled with what the needs were, I had to make requests to have the special ed director back as part of us, working on day-to-day, hand in hand with our parents and community and our students. After that, it leaves a hole, and it leaves our executive director, who will be supervising the director of special ed, not giving it 100% attention that it deserves. But now it would allow our executive director to support the position and reinforce the position and make special ed a better place, I would say, overnight. And so I wanted the board to have an opportunity, meaning each member, to weigh in and share their thoughts, or maybe even their frustration or their support around moving forward with this position. And we would like to move forward sooner than later. We would like to advertise and recruit as soon as next week. But before the board gets in and start weighing it, I do want to acknowledge a special group that I've come to work with, come to appreciate and love because of their commitment to not only their kids, but to all of our kids. And they remind us of having really an equity approach to this work. And this is a group of dynamic parents who are committed to not only supporting the district, but holding the district responsible and accountable. And that's good for each and every kid in our district. And so I just wanted to acknowledge this group of parents that we've been meeting with on our executive director have been leading this, Alexia Ritchie. My hat is off to her, and more importantly, if you will, to all of those parents who formed a group known as the Disability Squad, a very committed group, and who really push us and challenge us to become better so that that not only their kids can benefit, but all kids. And I just wanted to let the board know about this group and the community. And it's a group we applaud, we support, and we're so happy that they're with us here in Albany. At this time, Board President Tutane, I turn it back over to you for board members to weigh in on this position.
Board, so this is our chance to make any comments about Superintendent Wells posting the position for a special ed director. So please go ahead. Student board member elect?
Yeah, so I would just like to, I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment, so I guess you can interpret it how it is, Dr. Wells, but so in the background, it talks about how this special education director position would provide more quick support for paras and special ed teachers. I was on leadership last year. We interviewed paras as part of an appreciation week, but I also spoke to paras separately while working on the LCAP. And something that repeatedly came up was how a lot of special ed teachers and paras lack support in the form of formal training. And so I was just wondering or hoping that as part of this new position, that would be a priority for the special ed director to coordinate formal training for paraeducators, especially in the midst of the COVID crisis and possible distance or hybrid learning.
Trustee Corzo Clark, I really appreciate that question. It's honest and it's fair, and it's a great need that our executive director has repeatedly talked about and is aggressively addressing. And so I think it'd be most appropriate for me to turn that question over to her, because she has been doing some tremendous work about filling that huge hole in our district. So thank you for bringing that up. Executive Director Ritchie.
Thank you, Superintendent Wells and Trustee Leo Corzo Clark. Yes, in fact, we're partnering with some community members. In fact, a member of our disability squad is going to be working with me on some paraeducator professional development in the last couple of weeks of August as we prepare. And we do anticipate then having a more robust plan moving forward with our paraeducators and the opportunities that are afforded to them for professional development. So thank you for advocating for that. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Vice President Durand?
A couple of questions. I don't quite understand when you speak about the executive director and the special ed director. Are they, like, is the executive director over special ed then, special education, and a special education director? I don't get the terminology. And why would a special education director need an executive above them? Can you explain that, please?
Thank you, Trustee Vice President Duran. Yes, as I showed earlier under the superintendent report, the levels of rank and file and support, and under the executive director will be a director supporting all of her folks in her what we call wheelhouse or branch. And so the director of special ed will be reporting directly to the executive director and getting assistance, support, and guidance. And so when there are issues around, i.e. appeal, it would come up the channel through the special ed director. And if there's no satisfaction there, it would go to his or her boss, Alexia Ritchie, to address. And so in terms of rank and file, it's like any other position where, for example, once upon a time, the assistant superintendent, which is the same ranking, used to supervise, support, and evaluate the director of special ed. And it would be the same process here, but on a different side of the house. For example, Alexia Ritchie deals with the social emotional side of the house, and our assistant superintendent, Marie Williams, deals with the academic side of the house. And so, and then you can see all the breakdown here. Trustee Vice President Duran, do you see the org chart? And if you look at over where it says Executive Director, Student Services, and all the folks supervise and the essential duties that she's responsible for, that's how it would look. I hope that helps.
I'll just break in very, very briefly here and quickly. For another example on the chart, if you look to the far left of the Chief Business Official, Jackie Kim, underneath Jackie and reporting to her are several directors. Our Director of Maintenance and Facilities, Mr. Borrego, is there, as well as our executive chef and the director of the Albany Aquatic Center as well. So I believe what Dr. Wells is saying is that if indeed we do bring on a director of special education, it would be in a very similar manner such as this, and that director would report to the executive director, Ms. Ritchie.
Okay, I'm basically concerned about layering on bureaucracy. You know, title above another title. And in particular with special education, where parents need to feel that they're talking to a person that can make decisions, or is it going to be a position where that special ed director will have to go and speak to the executive director before any resolution can be done? In other words, what authority differentiates between the executive director and the special ed director? Once again, we're such a small district, and to kind of have a layer on another layer, it seems a little bit questionable. So that is my concern. And the other thing I would say is that, honestly, at this moment, I can think of somebody on the staff who would do an excellent job, but that is, I mean, I don't think I can name names, right?
Perhaps we can see if Executive Director Ritchie or Superintendent Wells might want to address your question about the authority.
Let me do the first part, and I'll turn it over to Executive Director Ritchie in just a moment. Your question is a good question because there's an opportunity for us to inform and not to assume. And that is a question that's been asked by our parents as well, Vice President Duran. So you guys are all asking the same question. Does the director have decision-making authority? And the short answer is yes. And they would have day-to-day authority. Absolutely, they need that in order to do their job. They would have the credential and the training to make good, sound decisions and not have to say, wait a minute, let me go ask my supervisor. It's not that kind of scenario. And so thank you for the question and the opportunity to explain that. Executive Director Ritchie, anything else to add?
Thank you, Superintendent Wells. I just concur with your vision moving forward, and am looking forward to the collaboration and the ability for me to assist and support not only this director, but of course all of the other layers that are rolled into the director's position, which would be the program specialist beneath the director. And then we move into supporting our teachers. But the focus is going to be, are we serving our students? And as this is not a full-time position yet, I can certainly say that with the new director coming on board, there will be an increased focus and increased time and effort available to work with families and to advocate for students. And so I do appreciate your concerns, and I'm looking forward to the collaboration.
Before we open it up to public comment, I think that Dr. Wells was interested in hearing from all of the board. So if any other trustees would like to speak up, or we can move it to public comment and then bring it back to the board.
I just have a quick question.
Go ahead, Trustee Doss.
Thank you. My question is, can you speak a little bit about the interview process for this position? You don't have to go into a lot of detail, but just, if you could speak a little bit about the interview process and who would be involved with that.
Thank you, Trustee Doss. Appreciate the question. Our interview process would consist of some of our special ed parents, a staff member or so, and perhaps one of our classified employees. And sometimes when so that's what that's the composition of the interview. And then they would make recommendations to either myself or Executive Director Alexia Ritchie. And then we take maybe the two top candidates and interview them together, and then select from the top two based on best fit.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. I appreciate that. My follow-up question would be, are we able to make suggestions as to who would be a part of that interview process, or how does it? Okay. I see the public comment, and I think the next person who is set to comment in the public comment is Olga Miranda, and if she would accept the invitation, I'd like to personally invite her to be a part of that interview process, if she is willing and has the time to be a part of that. Thank you.
Trustee Doss, I think that would be a great choice.
Okay, I also believe I saw Trustee Hinckley wanting to speak up.
Yep. Excuse me. I really love the idea of having more resources going to support special education, students and parents, particularly right now in this remote learning environment. I think the board has expressed before a lot of interest in knowing how that will work for students who need special education services along with other intervention programs. I'm glad to hear that the structure seems not to hinder that person from being able to operate effectively at a director level, because I think collaborating with Assistant Superintendent Williams will also be important as we develop that going forward. And in the past, the Director of Special Education was at that level with the rest of that team. And so my only, I think, it's not even a direction, but just a comment is that I realize that there's some urgency in getting the position filled, but I really encourage us to take the time to find the right person, because I think part of what's been very disruptive for families and, students may not register it, but for families has been that we've had now 3 people that are the sort of go-to person for special education in just since I've been on the board for less than 2 years. So I think it's just critical that we take the time to find somebody that we're really convinced is the right person for the job and is going to stay, even though I know that Executive Director Ritchie is juggling a lot of things right now. And so I'm sure there's also a sense of urgency, but I think it's really, really important that we get someone in this position that's able to do the work that we've wanted to be done in special education, for the past couple of years. And that might take some time. So that's my advice.
And Trustee Hinckley, we really appreciate that and take that to heart. Just an FYI, in terms of the recruitment, we plan to go tap the shoulder of 3 top-notch folks we identified, and then others. So we're going to be aggressively recruiting for that reason. And if it means waiting longer to get the top candidate or a top-notch candidate, thank you for that. We concur it will be worth the wait.
I want to ask Trustee Clark, would you like to speak now on this issue, or shall we go to public comment?
Yeah, thank you for asking, President Trutain. If I have something to say, I'll wait till after the public.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, accidentally muted. Then we open it to public comment, and I do ask if you can please keep your comments to 2 minutes.
Our first speaker is Olga Miranda.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Superintendent Wells, for making sure that clock is right in front of your camera. I can see it. I just want to be able to say I completely support this position for our Alexia Ritchie. No offense, Superintendent. I actually would have preferred her as Superintendent of the Albany Unified School District, but I will take this position and support Alexia Ritchie in this position. I know, I've worked with her. I've also worked with her husband, Mr. Ritchie. And I just want to be able to say, this is a position that's been overdue for a very long time, in that we need somebody in the position that not only can make decisions, but can also be empathetic to the struggles that families are facing, in being able to navigate all the different policies that perhaps families are not familiar with. We need allies. And in the moment that we are all finding ourselves in, and the challenges that we are facing as families, with children with 504s and IEPs. It's been a struggle. So I applaud the decision and the support for Alexia Ricci in this position. And I also welcome that we have to be able to open the doors back again. We had done so much progress by having paras, who are such a critical role for the education of our children that have disabilities. So thank you very much to all of you and your leadership. Trustee Doss, thank you so much for recommending me, and Superintendent, I hope you don't get offended by my honesty. That's the biggest problem. I am too honest and too blunt. So if you take that, I'm on your team. If not, just understand my only team is the families of children with disabilities and making sure that families of color in Albany are heard and that we are fighting for them every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miranda.
Our next speaker is Sonia Maldonado.
Ms. Maldonado, we cannot hear you. Can you unmute yourself? I think there might be some technical difficulties there. We can come back.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to. I don't know how this happened, but anyways, I'm glad I'm in. And I just want to say to everybody tonight, I've been working as a paraeducator for the last 21 years with the district, and I don't think we need another director. What we need is a person that is going to take charge of the students with the special needs, because it's a lot going on. I understand that, but I think what we need is a person who knows the students, like Ms. Ricci or another teacher. We don't need to spend so much money in another director. We have 3 directors, I think, in the last 4 years. I never met them. I know the teacher that I work with. She's in charge of the students. I support her, but I never met any director in the last 3 years. So that can tell you, do we need another director? No, we need a person that knows the students. We need a person that is going to support the students and the paraeducators. And we need all the paraeducators to come back. They were laid off, and we need them. I'm with my colleagues. We need the paraeducators, and with the parents, we need a person who's going to take over the students, a person that is in charge of the students, and that's what we need. I support Ms. Ricci, and I hope we can get her as a director of our program and as a director of the students. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our next speaker is Kelly Jacobs.
Wow, did you expect to speak?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. My name is Kelly Jacobs. I have 2 kids at the high school, and I just wanted to speak to the point of taking the board taking its time, or the district taking its time and hiring a new special ed director. I just want to caution against going too slowly, because we have processes that aren't functioning right now. Just as a personal note, I have a 15-year-old daughter sitting in a therapeutic school in Utah, waiting to come back to Albany High School to start her junior year. But because the district will not work with us on her evaluation, her physicians there and specialists there are cautioning us against bringing her home with no IEP in place. So those evaluation timelines have to get back up and running. There's real human suffering happening from it being, the process being stalled. And I feel like that's not being recognized in this special education conversation. not all children who need IEPs currently have them. And we have been at a standstill. We requested our IEP evaluation on the 1st of February, and we still don't have it. So please, I understand the need to hire someone very, very good, and I do want that. But there is some urgency here that I hope some other people share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jacobs. Also, I want to ask staff if they can please be in contact with Ms. Jacobs this week regarding her situation.
Duly noted, President Tutain.
Thank you. We can move on to the next public speaker.
Our next speaker is Cheryl, please.
Thank you, everybody. I am, as many of you know, an advocate at the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, DREDF, and I'm also a member of the Albany Disability Squad. I urge the board to support the hiring of an experienced and, dare I say it, visionary special education administrator who can help this district move away from these silos between general and special education, someone who really understands universal design for learning, and someone who uses, and I hate to say the word, but it's true, an equity lens to address disparities. And those disparities cross racial and gender lines in our district and in many other districts as well. We just don't gather the data to actually track this. Decisions about compensatory education are looming. Across the country, lawsuits are being filed. In one lawsuit, 20 states are being sued by a group of families out of New York, and they are recruiting. I don't say this to be threatening to the district, but to say there has never been a time to put someone in charge who can dedicate themselves to what was already not working very well before COVID, has now resulted in a situation where kids have been essentially thrown off the educational lifeboat in many cases. And families have been told, you know, sink or swim, good luck, we'll drop you off a packet. And we have kids who can't access. We have sent letters out to families saying, we can't provide distance learning accommodations. Sorry, there was a lot of mistakes made with the previous hire. I just want to be transparent about that. So we need someone, and I fully support the superintendent's reversal. And I think it's a sign of good leadership to understand when maybe you went the wrong way. And I appreciate the backing up and saying, let's rethink this, because I think it says a lot about his openness to put the students at the center of this and not the budget and so on. So we need strong leadership. We need transparency with families, and it will solve a lot of problems and save a lot of money. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thies.
Our next speaker is Jeremiah Pinguello.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm speaking. I'm a former Albany High special education student alumni, and Miss Ritchie, I owe her so much thanks. I would love to cry right now, but I'll hold myself. You know, I didn't understand math, and I took a math A class and English 1, English A. And it does take a right person to help you learn. It does take someone just to be there for you. It's tough with 30 students in the class. That one teacher just doesn't care. But you get a special ed student teacher that does care and takes the time with you, you're going to learn. And I make a motion to accept this. Whatever Miss Ritchie's, whatever help she needs, I'm all for it. I mean, she's got such a heavy workload, and someone else can help her out and take direction. And you know what? Anybody that Albany gets is going to be a great person. You're all worried about getting the best of the best of the best of the best. You know, we're going to get someone very good regardless of who it is. And sure, everybody makes mistakes. Major League Baseball players, they strike out. You know, they make errors. Sure, someone's going to, you know, make a mistake. But you know what? We need to encourage this person, whoever it is, support them, and I know they're going to do an excellent job. So, Ms. Ritchie, you got my full support, and good luck with this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking. We'll move to our next speaker.
Okay, our next speaker is Neri Castillo McIntyre.
Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to take a moment to respond to a few of the comments that have taken place just now. I heard Vice President Duran mention that she had already someone in mind that is a current member of the staff. And in line with what some of the other participants have already mentioned, I think even though we don't want to take too long to make that decision about who the new director of special education should be, we also don't want to rush it and end up in the same situation we were last year when we had a director of both student services and special education. And we ended up where we are right now, even before the pandemic struck. And in the words of Director Ritchie herself, the Department of Special Education is currently underwater. It's going to take someone with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to really bring it at least at water level. I also wanted to point out that Ms. Jacobs a moment ago spoke about the dire situation that her family finds herself in as a result of a lack of leadership in the special education department. And even though no parent of students with disabilities in the district might have the exact same situation, that really exemplifies the situation that the district is in because of a lack of leadership. So I ask you to please not only bring a director of special education who is the right person for the position, but also whether or not they report to Director Ritchie or to the superintendent, that person be properly empowered and highly qualified to carry the duties of Director of Special Education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll move to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Julie Paulson.
Hi, your next speaker is actually Ben Wallace, who is the husband of Julie Paulson, and I happen to be speaking on her computer. And I wanted to say that I strongly support the proposal for a special ed director. And I want to say thank you, a very, very heartfelt thanks to Dr. Wells and Executive Director Ritchie for proposing this position. Very much in support of it for all of the reasons that have been described here. And I think it's really, really essential to get the right person and that we look, I agree we don't want to spin our wheels on it, but we look hard and we be very careful about the job description and that we make, I think the way we find the right person is to have the incentives so that the right person is going to want to step up to this job, whether it's compensation, whether it's their level of authority, or whether it's room to grow. And so one comment I wanted to make, again, reiterating my support for the position, when I was looking at the org chart earlier in this meeting, it was noted that the ED of student services is looking after the social and emotional needs of students, and the assistant superintendent is looking after the academic needs of students. It's very important for the board to recognize the central role that a special ed director has in both the social emotional needs of students and the academic performance of students. That is really what the IDA is all about. And so that person ultimately needs to be able to grow into a role of authority and responsibility where they are able to engage at that director level with both of those leaders to make sure that they can promulgate a vision very much like Cheryl was describing of special education, getting past the silos of special ed and general ed. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. We'll move to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Sarah Howler.
Good evening, board and community. Thank you for letting me speak again. My name is Sarah Haller. I'm a special ed teacher within the district. I wanted to thank you for reconsidering this position and thoughtfully presenting this plan tonight. We have lacked consistent leadership, as has been said, and we really do not only need someone who can be an advocate for families, but also someone who can lead the staff to becoming or to get to a place where we are more cohesive, more unified, more collaborative than we already are. The morale has definitely suffered, given that we haven't had the strong leadership that we so much needed. And so I really hope that in addition to making sure we have a robust panel, including parents and other staff from across the district, that we also ensure that we seek the input from the special ed staff, those who are on the ground working with the students with special needs, to ensure that our search encapsulates the qualities and characteristics that we feel we need in order to get the guidance, leadership, support that will ultimately better serve the students in the Albany community. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking. We'll move to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Kathleen Mart.
Hi, this is Kathleen Martin. I'm a parent of a incoming 10th grader with an IEP, and also a member of the Albany Disability Squad. And I want to echo all the gratitude to moving towards changing the position to a director position. And I want to say that it's very important that this person has the student first attitude. I remember Brian Biggs was a previous was a program specialist, and I really loved working with him. The brief time I did, he was always like, all right, Team Leo. And when I would come to him, you knew he really cared and wanted to find solutions. And even if it wasn't something I requested, was it maybe the norm policy, he wouldn't just come down, no, sorry, we don't do that, which is really hard for a parent when you're requesting something that you really believe that your child needs and you just get a blanket no because no, we're not doing that. It really hurts and it makes you feel like that the school doesn't care. So it's really important to have someone who's been working with students with special needs, understands them, understands what families go through. And so we can really feel like we're a team and we're not just, you know, if people are just worrying about the district budget or something like that. And I'm finished. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for speaking, Ms. Marte. We'll go to our next speaker.
Our next speaker is Amy Apple. Sorry.
Hi, thank you. So I wanted to just mention that I'm also a member of the Disability Squad, and I wanted to thank Dr. Wells and Executive Director Ritchie for the time that they have spent in the most recent month or so conversing with us at the Disability Squad. It seems like we've been able to set up a really positive working relationship, and I really appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to say is a response to Sonia about creating a director who's one level below Executive Director Ritchie. I think that it's actually a good thing because this director will have fewer administrative burdens of the kind that Executive Director Ritchie has. And as a result, will be closer to the teachers and the students. So we'll be able to be more responsive to the needs of the students and the families than a person with all that administrative weight would be able to be. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, our last speaker is Daniel Cardozo.
Hello, everyone. This is Daniel Cardozo. I am a member of the Disability Squad. I'm also a coordinator for Familias Latinas. I wanted to speak a little bit about what we've been talking about tonight. I do want to acknowledge Superintendent Wells' acknowledgement that we do need a director position for special education in Albany. I think that is a good piece of leadership, acknowledging that we need to change direction. And I think Alexia Ritchie has given us some good leadership and responsiveness on that score, engaging with the Disability Squad as we push for better representation and service for students with disabilities. I immediately, when Trustee Brian Doss spoke about our potential in the Albany School District as a place to lead, it reminded me of why I got involved as a parent in this community to begin with. The size of the community and the critical mass of parents that are eager and ready to get involved in the community put us in a really great position to set up an example of how to educate our kids in a public school district in California. That goes for how we serve students with disabilities, that goes for the Albany Children's Center and how we serve students in the preschool. And that goes for this position, for a director who should be allowed the leeway and autonomy to make the decisions they need to make for our kids, while still working with Alexia, a person that I've worked with for years and trust to have our students' best interests at heart. I'm optimistic about what we can do while also being realistic about the scale of the challenge ahead of us. We have not been doing what we can do for students in the district, but I am hopeful and optimistic that we can step up and do the work we need to do. My thanks to everybody on the board, including Clementina Duron and Trustee Brian Doss, that have spoken up on behalf of these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all of our public speakers. This is a review and discussion item. I bring it back to the board. Are there any final comments on the special ed director position?
Board President Trutain, it was Trustee Jacob who yielded his right to speak and wanted to come back after he heard from the public. So he may want to continue to speak or not. I just wanted to remind us of that.
Right. To you, Trustee Clark, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, President Trutain and Dr. Wells. First of all, I want to thank the entire staff, the board, and the public for this very thorough and productive discussion. I really want to support this position, but I cannot until I get an answer to this question. I just really need to know if all of our special ed paras have been reinstated. I know we brought some folks back, but that's something that is very important to me. If we're going to be adding another position, I want all of our folks to come back who were with us before.
Trustee Clark, I'm going to answer that question. We're in the process of trying to assign those paras that was brought back in the resolution, and then bring back, then reassess to see what else we can bring back, so that we make sure we have assignments for all of our paras when they do return.
But we're still in learning mode. We're in distance learning. Those paras are going to be needed. And if we had them before, and it was my impression that some of them were temporarily laid off because there wasn't work or whatever, well, now we're back in session, and some of those folks that spoke up. You know, I'm a teacher myself. I know how important paras are. And to be completely honest, I really support this position, but I'm having a hard time supporting it when we're not bringing back all of our folks. So is there any way we can get a number of how many SPED paras are still not reinstated?
Yes, we can forward that to you, Trustee Doss. And excuse me, Trustee Clark. I'm looking at Trustee Doss and talking to Trustee Clark, so my apologies. And as we know, when it gets late, we get a little froggy. At least I do nowadays. And so I apologize. Neither one of you look remotely alike. So my bad on that one. Trustee Clark, I just want to be clear. We agree with your position. And we're in the process of grappling how best to do this.
Yeah, I get that. But sorry, I'm just one board member. And very seldom do I get what I request, but I'm going to keep fighting for it. I would like for all of our paras to come back before we entertain adding a position, which is needed. You know, I'm giving you that. This position is needed, but so are our paras.
Can I just follow? So I had asked for a list that showed which staff we had brought back and which we had not yet, which Ms. Gonzalez sent around this afternoon. I don't know if it's possible to share that. I found it very helpful. I hate to put you on the spot, but is it possible to share that document?
We shared it
with the screen.
We shared it with the board, but I do want us to I want to do both things, but this was the topic for the most part with the special ed director, and yes, we can share that on the screen. I just didn't want us to forget about that.
Right, or I was also going to ask for it in the context of a budget update as well. So
can we table it to that, Trustee Hinckley? Can we table it to then? It might be more fitting then. You think?
Not if we're talking about
I think. Yeah, I think Trustee Clark was interested in knowing it as part of this.
Okay, we'll bring it up. Thank you for that.
Okay. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Make sure I have the correct document up. Yes. Okay, can everyone see this okay?
Yes,
okay?
Thank you.
So at the May 26, 2020 board meeting, we passed a resolution. Well, we passed two resolutions to reduce classified services. And we referred to them as permanent reductions on one resolution and then provisional reductions on another resolution. On the resolution with permanent reductions were special ed paraeducators in the classifications of mild to moderate and moderate to severe. And since then, so that resolution, the total FTE on that resolution across all classifications was, I believe, 32.73 FTE. But since that date, so on the left-hand side, you'll see the classifications that whose layoffs are still in effect as of today. But since May 26th, we have rescinded several classifications and about half of the FTE we've returned back. And so what we have here are paraeducator mild to moderate 1.6 FTE and paraeducator moderate to severe 3.87 FTE. And these, you're going to see them again at the bottom because I sorted these by date and when we did that. So the top two lines, those were done at the June 22nd board meeting. Later at the July 14th board meeting, we returned this athletic field maintenance position. And then at that board meeting, there was a resolution or an amendment to the personnel assignment order. And we returned these positions, the behavioral para, special ed, para 2, and just about 8 FTE in mild to moderate paraeducators. And then lastly, what you see on the personnel assignment order tonight is this 0.5 maintenance in facilities. So total let's see if I can add this up really quickly. We have reinstated 15 FTE across the different special ed paraeducator classifications. And I guess, and I'll add, I know that our special ed department is working on assigning all of our para staff. And so once those assignments are made, as Dr. Wells said, we will continue to assess and determine if if and or when to return more, either more staff or to rescind more of these laid off positions that are still on the permanent side. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so thank you very much for that update, Ms. Gonzalez. This is a review and discussion, and the superintendent introduced this item by saying he wanted to survey the trustees about our feelings about, well, our thoughts, excuse me, about a director of special education. So I think that everyone has shared their thoughts, perhaps except for myself. I want to add that in my opinion, that this is a necessary position. And I hope that gives you the feedback that you need, Dr. Wells.
Yeah, it's important to myself and our staff that we hear from the board and that the board has an opportunity to share their thoughts and then give direction. And so I appreciate the opportunity to hear from every board member. And so thank you for the opportunity to weigh in. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking, for surveying the board. That brings us to our review and action item of the agenda. Our first item is 13-1. Tentative agreement between Service Employees International Union and Albany Unified School District.
Okay, so this item, tonight we are bringing this ratification of this tentative agreement between our Service Employees International Union and the district. This, the SEIU bargaining unit represents our custodial and maintenance staff, as well as our food service and transportation staff. And so when we concluded bargaining with our other two units, with the Albany Teachers Association and the California Schools Employees Association, that also triggered what we call the Me Too language for our SEIU unit. And so I'm very excited to say that we are now, we've got everyone caught up in terms of raises, and this will conclude our bargaining for 2019-20 and 2021 for all of our units in terms of salaries. So that's what we have here.
Thank you, board. Is your opportunity to ask any questions? Or if there's no questions, I can ask for a motion.
I'll move that we ratify the tentative agreement between SEIU and the Albany Unified School District.
Second. Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Student Board Member Mala.
Yes.
This would start with Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Vice President Duran.
Yes.
President Trutain.
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
And Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. That brings us to our next item, 13-2, 2019-20 and 2020-21 salary amendment for confidential and unrepresented employee groups.
So this, again, this is sort of under the umbrella of the Me Too that we apply to all of our employee groups. And the confidential and unrepresented folks are work in positions such as our program specialists, our behaviorists, occupational therapists. I'm probably forgetting some right now, our mental health specialists. And then in our confidential group, we have our folks, many of our folks at the district office, such as our HR tech and our budget folks. And so this is, again, to wrap up salary increases for all of our employee groups.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Again, I ask the board if you have any comments or questions on this item, or if not, if someone wants to make a motion.
I move that we approve the 2019-20 and 2020-2021 salary amendment for confidential and unrepresented employee groups.
A second.
Thank you. May we have a roll call?
Vice President Duran? Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Student Board Member Mala?
Yes.
Vice President Duran?
Yes.
President Trutain?
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, board. I know that we're going through these quickly, and I just feel like it's appropriate to say that we really appreciate the work of all of our staff in all of these different positions. We're happy to be able to support these negotiated contracts and raises. So please don't take the brevity of our action as in anything but the highest respect. We really do care very much about you, and I appreciate your work. And with that, I'll move to the item 13-3, 2019, 2020, and 2020-2021 salary amendment for management employees.
Thank you. So here again, this is our final group of employees that we are bringing a Me Too for. These are our management employees. These are going to be our principals and vice principals, our directors, our executive cabinet, and I think that's everyone. So this would get us all caught up so that all of our groups have received the same salary increases as every other group in the district.
Questions or comments from the board? May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the 2019-20 and 2020-21 salary amendment for management employees.
Second.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Student Board Member Mala?
Yes.
President Trutain?
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
And Vice President Duran?
Yes.
Thank you.
We move to item 13-4, Superintendent's Contract Amendment. Ms. Gonzalez, would you like to introduce this item?
Yes. The superintendent was evaluated by the board in June. And on June 16th, the superintendent received a satisfactory evaluation. Written in his existing contract is language that states upon a satisfactory evaluation, there are some pieces that are triggered. In addition to that, then the superintendent is eligible to negotiate any part of his contract. And so the board negotiated an amendment to the superintendent's contract. I have that amendment to display on our screens, and for the board to then vote on the amendment. And I will display it in just a second. Julie, can you let me share? Thank you. Okay. Some technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we are. So just to be clear, when we negotiate an amendment to the superintendent's contract, what you see here in open session are just the pieces or the parts that will be changed. So this won't be the full contract. And I'm just going to go ahead and read the amendment since this is the first time that folks are seeing it. So the title amendment number 1 to the contract for employment between the Albany Unified School District and Superintendent Frank Wells II. This amendment 1 to the contract of employment is made by and between the Albany Unified School District, which is located in the County of Alameda, State of California, acting through its Board of Trustees, and Frank Wells II, and is made with reference to the following facts. The recitals are: A, on July 1, 2019, the board and superintendent entered into an employment contract. B, it is a desire of the board to grant the superintendent a new term of employment as provided by California Education Code 35031. It is additionally the desire of the board to modify the language in sections 1, 2, and 4A respectively. Now, therefore, it is hereby agreed between the parties as follows. Section 1. Section 1 is the term of the contract. Section 1 of this agreement is hereby amended to read as follows. The employment contract for the superintendent is for a period of 4 years, beginning July 1st, 2019, and terminating on June 30th, 2023, subject to the terms and conditions set forth below. Section 2. Section 2 is the salary portion of the contract. The superintendent received a satisfactory evaluation during the 2019-20 fiscal year, thus entitling him to the same percentage salary increase granted by the board to the Albany Teachers Association, ATA, for the 2019-20 school year. The superintendent therefore shall receive the same 2% salary increase for the 2019-20 school year that was received by ATA, effective July 1, 2019. The superintendent's annual salary referenced in Section 2 of the contract shall be adjusted accordingly. 3, in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and financial crisis regarding the same, the superintendent shall forego the additional 1 1/4% salary increase granted by the board to ATA. Section 4A, this is section about health benefits. So section 4A of this agreement is hereby amended to read as follows. Effective July 1, 2020, superintendent shall be entitled to select and participate at the district's expense medical, dental, and vision benefits offered under the district approved plans available to ATA members. And finally, 5, except as modified herein, all remaining terms and conditions of the contract shall remain in full force and effect. Are there any questions?
I'll go ahead and ask Ms. Gonzalez. One thing that the board has considered is that in other districts, it seems like the superintendent's health benefits are usually the same as what is offered to the teachers union. Do you have material that you could share regarding how often the superintendent and the teachers union has a match on their health and welfare benefits?
I do. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I conducted a survey of school districts in Alameda County, as well as school districts, a sample of comparable districts in California. And just a little background about the sample. The sample that I used was the same sample of districts that we used in our school services staffing report, just because we had already been compared to those districts before. And the question that I asked was, what is your district's contribution towards health benefits for your teachers? And what is your district's contribution towards health benefits for your superintendent? In every case, the superintendent received the same contribution as teachers' units did. So that means that, for instance, in our district, where we pay full family up to Kaiser, then in these other districts, they would also contribute the same full family contribution for their superintendent. There are some districts that do not make a contribution towards health benefits, or they're somewhere in between, but some districts went to probably some time ago, something where they call benefits on the schedule. That just means that the cost of benefits is included in the salary, and so there's no additional contribution towards health benefits after that. And so then, in the same way, the superintendent's benefits were also included in the superintendent's salary. And so I'm going to bring up this document. Okay. So here we are. This was the sample that we used based on our school services staffing report. And here you can see that in each of these districts, if the district makes a contribution towards health benefits for teachers, then they also make a contribution towards health benefits for the superintendent. And it's almost always the exact same amount. And with the exception of Albany, Albany does not do that. And then over on the right here, I listed the enrollment just to show that this is, this was comparable. We looked to these districts because they were similar in size to our district, okay? And then below is the comparison of districts in Alameda County. Let's see if I can make it a little smaller. There we go. And here again, you can see that in districts that make a contribution towards teachers' health benefits, they also do the same for their superintendents. But in places where it's on the schedule, like in Dublin, number 5, then the superintendent also pays for their own benefits out of their salary. And this is the same, and it's almost always the same contribution. And if you look at enrollment, it doesn't really matter how big or small your school district is. So the only outlier then is Albany, where we do not make, the district does not make a contribution towards the superintendent's health benefits. Do you have any questions about this?
Yeah, I'll go ahead, which is, it's clear that in what you're showing right now that you've alphabetized these districts. And there's some very large districts and some very small ones here. But you know, of course, the main thing that people are interested in is total compensation, you know, not just salary. So in terms of total compensation for the superintendent, is Albany superintendent at the top of the list or in the middle or at near the bottom? Can you comment on that?
I can. So when you do a compensation study, you are also asking for salary information. And in comparing our superintendent's total compensation salary to all the districts in Alameda County, the total compensation for our superintendent is the lowest in the county.
Thank you very much. I just, I knew that, you know, even though that was like clearly an alphabetized list, I just thought that some people looking at it quickly might take it as meaning something else. Yeah. Board, I open it up to other questions or comments.
Yeah, I have a comment, President Tutane.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this is really the fair thing to do, and I'm very happy that this is finally in front of the board.
Thank you, Trustee Clark. Trustee Doss, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to second what Trustee Clark said. Just it feels like the right thing to do, and I'm very happy that it's in front of the board this evening. So.
Between Trustees Clark and Doss, do you think maybe that we could have a motion in a second?
I'm happy to make a motion. Ms. Gonzalez, are you able to bring back up the amendment so that I can read the motion?
And I'm sorry if I jumped the gun. Certainly Vice President Duran or Trustee Hinckley, we can pause if you have any comments that you would like to make. Happy to hear from you. Okay, not seeing anyone unmuting. I'll turn it back over to Trustee Doss.
Thank you. I move that we approve the amendment for to approve the superintendent's contract amendment.
Yeah, I'll happily second that.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Sorry, having some technical issues. Student Board Member Mala?
Yes.
And then we start with Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Vice President Duran?
Yes.
And President Trutane?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Board. That moves us to item 13-5, appointment of Budget Advisory Committee members.
Can I jump in real quick, President Tutane?
Oh, sure, please do.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting till maybe like 11 o'clock. I was just hoping that we don't have to do it multiple times because we're doing a roll call vote. So If anybody thinks 11 is not enough time or too much, it's just, if we have to do it multiple times, it slows stuff down because we have to do the roll call.
Great, thank you for that. And so we'll have to do a roll call. I appreciate you looking at the clock and realizing that we need an extension. I think that's a generous extension, and I hope that we'll be able to take care of our business within that.
Yes, please.
Ms. Shen, can we get a roll call on the extension, please?
Yes, Student Board Member Mala.
Yes.
Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Vice President Duran.
Yes.
President Trutain.
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And CBO Kim, would you like to introduce our appointment of Budget Advisory Committee members item, please?
Sure. Thank you, President Trutain. Good evening, board members. This item is for the Board of Education to appoint 3 new members to the AUSD Budget Advisory Committee. So board has received 4 applications, and 1 application is for CSEA representative, and the other 3 applications can fill 2 positions available, which is 1 parent position and 1 Albany community member vacant position. So now we are open to the board discussion. If you have any questions, of course, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I'll start our discussion just by saying that I always find these committee placements to be incredibly difficult, because the fact that we have a community where people will step forward and volunteer their time to be on these important committees and to help the district make decisions and move forward, I find that very inspiring. And the bad thing about it is that we often get more applications than we have positions available. And it just never feels good when somebody is willing to volunteer and step up and take a burden on themselves to have a limited number of positions to fill. I believe that tonight we have 4 applications and we only have 3 available positions. And I want to thank all of the applicants very, very deeply. And I just want to point out that this committee is this committee has publicly noticed meetings, and whether or not you become a voting member of the committee, you can always participate, and I certainly hope that you will. Trustee Clark?
Yeah, I just want to second what you said. I'm so happy that we always have so many people willing to participate in these types of committees. Just kind of throwing out an idea out there. For the 4th, the person doesn't get selected, could we make them be an alternate just in case something happens for somebody who's on the committee? Instead of having to try to fill that position, that person could be the alternate.
CBO Kim?
Sure. Yes, and there is, and I just wanted to point this typo here. It says SEI representative, and it is CSEA representative.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. So we have an application tonight for the CSEA representative. And thank you for offering that, Trustee Clark. I think that's a fantastic idea. And so that hopefully we can have a standby member. Okay. So part of this, I think, go ahead, Vice President Duran.
I just had asked about the criteria that we had selected last year regarding the BAC, and we basically have it outlined here in terms of the administration and the staff and the parents and the community people. But one thing I had asked too and found out is that there was only one BAC community person who was female, although I'm not sure that's correct. because Sarah was on it, Sarah Hinckley was on it, and then Ms. Cross was the chair of the committee. So I just wanted to mention in terms of trying to also have a balance of gender on the committee as well.
CBO Kim, I think that I certainly agree with Vice President Duran. Last year, it was led by Ms. Cross, and we did have other female members, but I believe that the website that's on the district's, the web page, I should say, on the district's website indicates that of the current membership, only the Ocean View principal, Terry Jorgensen, continues as the only remaining female member. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. We have applications that the board members have all seen in their entirety. And I think maybe we could move this forward one step quickly by saying we only have one application that could fill the CSEA position. Board, are we willing to move forward with appointing Yael Bloom as our CSEA representative onto the BAC committee?
I second that motion that you made.
Then if we could go ahead and take a quick vote on that. I know it'll be 2 votes total for this item, but.
Sorry, so you're going to vote for each person?
I think that we can do, I think that the other will, the other may be different, but I think this one, this is the only possible fit for this particular slot.
Okay, so the motion was for Yael Bloom to fill the CSEA representative position. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Student board member Mala.
I didn't receive the supplement materials for this, so I'm going to abstain on all voting on this item.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then we would move to Trustee Doss. Trustee Doss.
Yes, I'm here, but I had to restart my computer, so.
Oh, sorry, technical issues, Trustee Doss. I can give you a quick update. Is we only had one candidate that could fill the CSEA representative slot to the Budget Advisory Committee. And so the current vote is for appointing them to that position.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Vice President Duran.
Yes.
President Trutain.
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and that brings us to the other positions available are 1 slot for a parent and 1 slot for a community member. So there's 2 other available positions. And the 3 remaining candidates all fill those criteria. So we have 3 candidates and 2 positions. I think that we could go forward by voting for each candidate, and then the 2 that have the most votes would then move into the 2 positions. So each trustee would get 2 votes. Does this board, do you think that that makes sense to do it this way, or do I have another suggestion? Or do you have another suggestion?
I like your way.
I like it. I just wanted to ask if we could talk a little bit about the candidates before we vote, because I wanted to make a couple of comments.
That's a great idea. Please do. I was very impressed by these applications.
I was as well. All I wanted to say was, I guess two things. One is I like the idea of having an alternate. I do think, however, that consistency is important. And I sometimes on committees, when we actually allowed one position to be split a while back on this committee, and there was some consensus that it led to some sort of difficulty in continuing conversations just because people weren't all at the same meetings. So I think a sort of backup is good, but splitting a position, I think, is very challenging. And the other thing is that I'm a little concerned about our committee that we're missing a lot of staff and teacher positions and becoming overweighted with non-staff and teachers. So I'm hoping that other folks will step up to fill some of those positions, because I just don't think the committee works as effectively if it's primarily parents and community members. But the other thing I wanted to say is that one of the challenges committee members have raised is how hard it is to understand the budget and how much of a learning curve there is. So two of the applicants have a lot of familiarity with district budgets. So Rebecca Long did a lot of work on Measure LL and other measures that required an ability to really wrap one's head around the district budget and to understand where funds come from and why we get funding from different sources. And I think that kind of knowledge is so invaluable in sitting on this committee. And so I just wanted to highlight that qualification because I think it's incredibly important. And I think most of the committee members have been frustrated by their own steep learning curve in understanding the budget. And then Pareen Shah has been sitting on the advisory committee for the bond measures, which also I think gives you a lot of expertise and understanding of, what are the different pools of money and what is the sort of oversight function that a committee like this could serve. And we've talked about having this committee sort of learn from the bond oversight committee. So I think it would be really helpful to have someone with that experience serving on the budget advisory committee. I think Asaf also has tremendous experience. I just wanted to, tremendous experience in the education field. I just wanted to highlight the two people that I think could sort of hit the ground running on AUSD's budget in particular, which, having sat on that committee, I think would be really valuable for the board and for the superintendent.
Thank you, Trustee Hinckley. Any further board comments? Okay. So, Ms. Shen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a name of one of the candidates, and then we'll go through the board and ask for their vote. So each board member only gets 2 votes. Okay. I'll try to help keep track of this. So just simply in the order of the applications that we received, we will vote first on Mr. Pareen Shah. So, I'll use, let me see, Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Vice President Duran?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
And Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we will vote on Ms. Rebecca Long. whose application was next in our stack. Okay, and now we'll begin. I'm sorry, this is why we need help doing this. Trustee Clark, did I start with you last time?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so then we need to move to Vice President Duran. We'll cast the first vote on Ms. Rebecca Long.
Yes.
Okay. I will vote next also yes. Okay. And that moves to Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Trustees, by the votes given so far, these are our two, Mr. Shaw and Ms. Long, are our appointees, and this puts Ms. Bartura in the position of being our standby candidate in case there's an absence. Okay.
And I would just echo your pitch from earlier that these are public meetings, and we're always happy to have people come and offer advice and input. So I encourage everybody, but particularly Asaf, to come join us.
Yes, please do. And there are changes on these committees, you know, just like the positions that we're replacing now. And so please go ahead and get involved. And then by the time a position opens up that you can step into that is a voting position, you'll be up to speed and ready to go. And I have been at these meetings a number of times, and everyone is listened to. And everyone has a voice at these meetings. So please do go, even if you're not appointed. Okay. That brings us to our next item, which is the 13-6, the 45-day budget revision. Last time we had a discussion on this at our last meeting. This is now an action item for the board.
President Tutain, as you know, this is part two of a two-part series regarding our budget, our 45-day revision that will be done tonight and presented to you by our chief business official, Jackie Kim.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. So this item is to review and approve the 45-day revision of 2020-21 budget. And I'll share my presentation. Okay, so this 45-day revision is not required, but Ed Code section states that no later than 45 days after the governor signs the annual budget act, the school district shall make available for public review for any revisions to reflect the funding made available by the budget act. And the Governor Newsom signed the annual budget act for 2021 on June 29, 2020. So the 45 days falls on August 13th. Okay, so here are major changes from the May revision. So Governor restored the 7.92 reduction to LCFF funding. So meaning it sets the COLA at 0% instead of using minus 10%. It was previously was in the May revision. And also this gives us one-time learning loss mitigation fund. And this we'll go over this in more detail later on. And that also gives us another deferrals for 2021 apportionment to 11 billion. And this also has that our enrollment growth is unfunded, meaning the maximum we can get for our enrollment is funding based on our enrollment is last year's ADA. So this is the summary of our revised general fund budget. So as you can see, this is really more of the changes that we have for the budget. Okay, so the first line item, the state revenue, we have adjustment of 2 million. And this is due to the KALB from negative 7.92 to 0%. And also, so we were expecting to have a higher enrollment due to IDT this year, but now this with the SB 98, we are going back to maximum of last year's ADA, which is 3586. Okay, so we have additional 2 million for the revenue. The next item in revenue, there are federal revenue and state revenue, total of 1.6 million is given to us for one time for the learning loss mitigation. So,
excuse me, President Dutain?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Is there any way to blow that screen up a little bit?
Let's see. Is it better?
If you can even get it a little bit larger, that it would be helpful. It's
really small, yeah.
I see a
maybe would this help?
Yes, I think that's better. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here are the revenue summaries. Now we can take a look at the expenditure side for the adjustment. So you can see the first two line items, 630,000, 750,000. This is total of about $1 million. This is due to restoring the 16.57 FTE from our permanent layoff list, salaries and benefits. Okay, so this is the list of items that we went over earlier from our Human Resources Officer, Ms. Gonzalez, show the list of items or list of the FTE. And the next one will be the books and supplies and other operating expenditures. So this is about 1.6 million minus 120,000 for the technology refreshment. So the theory behind this is, since we are going to use this 1.6 million for our technology need for this year, we don't have to do annual technology refreshment of 120,000. Okay, so there are some savings there for us. So the board will receive the details of this learning continuity and attendance plan and related expenditures at the September 8th board meeting. So that means that we will disclose the details of this 1.6 million expenditures. Okay, so the last item is you will see 634,000 in the adopted budget, additional 88,000, and it's going to be total of about 723,000. This is increase in contributions from general fund to Albany Children's Center. Okay. So here we are now with the 3-year multi-year projection. So the first 3 columns are the adopted budget that we brought to the board in June with the May revision information. And the second 3 columns are the 45-day revision numbers. So again, the first line item, you will see the difference of about 2 million from 29.8 to 31.9 and so on. So about 2 million each year. And this is the restoring KALB set to 0. And the next 2 items in revenue, federal and state revenue, is the one-time learning loss mitigation fund. And again, in local revenue, you will see both budget adoption and 45-day revision. There's increased 700,000 in from 21-22, and this is due to partial tax. So now let's move to expenditures. So expenditures, when you see the classified salaries and benefits, there is about $1 million increase due to 16.57 FTE we brought back from the permanent list. And you will see the increase in book supplies and other operating services. And this is again to record and or to budget the one-time learning loss mitigation fund. Okay, so those are the major items that we did. And the last one here. So you will see in 2021 about now 723,000 of contributions to ACC program. This also include another 60,000. So meaning we have about 660,000 contribution to ACC program that the board approved, and another 60,000 to pay for our portables at school site to our facility fund. Okay, so again, please note our structural deficit, and this is what we have to address. Let's see here. Okay, so as you can see, on the third year, we barely made 3% of our reserves. So that means after this year, if we have $1 deficit in 23-24, we'll have to cut $1. If we have $1 million deficit in 23-24, we will have to cut $1 million in 23-24. So that's where we are at with our budget, because we barely really made 3% at year 3. And you can see, I do expect the questions about, okay, the first year, 2021, we have $1.5 million of deficit. And second year is 900,000. What happened there? And this is due to our increase in partial tax. The expenditure stays pretty much the same, but because of additional revenue in partial tax, that we could have less net loss in the second year, 21-22. But in 22-23, you can see, wow, the net loss went up by 1.5 million. And the reason is, so STARS went up by 2.5%. PERS went up by 3% in that year, in 22-23. So with the stepping column increase of $500,000, total of those benefits and the stepping column increase is about 1.5 million. That means the district doesn't have any, doesn't give any raises and no other items happens. We will just have 1.5 million of additional expenditures from 21-22 to 22-23. So here is the big structural deficit we are experiencing in 22-23. Okay. So what about the fourth year, since we used up all our reserves by 22-23? So here is how it looks like in fourth year. In fourth year, again, due to stepping column increase and other benefits increases, we are experiencing, we are expecting to have about over 3 million. So again, that means we will have to address this $3 million additional cut. Okay. So here we will have more numbers once we have on audit actual next month. But this is where we are in big pictures, and we'll just give you an update later on next month. So at this point, it is important to understand that this does not include any negotiation items, meaning, for example, raises. Okay. And this 23-24, this year, we will have to address this before next June, because when we adopt the budget again in next June, this is going to be our third year in the last column here. Okay. So this budget summary points. The AUSD continues to have a structural deficit with higher expenditures annually than revenue. So this, without additional cuts, AUSD may not be able to meet our financial obligations, meaning payroll expenditures, in 23-24. as is typical in budget, making less dramatic cuts earlier results in rollover savings in each subsequent years, which means if we address early enough, let's say 3 million that we'll have to address in 23, 24. If we address 1 million in 21, 22, which is ongoing reduction. So we just need to make 1 million in 21, 22, and it will address 3 years. Okay. So the fourth bullet point, the district will bring the recommended cuts in amount at the September 8th board meeting with the unaudited actuals, meaning we will have actual numbers for 19, 20. We might have some adjustment due to our pandemic. And number 5, the last bullet point, the further cuts may be necessary in the absence of significant increase in revenue in order to create a stable reserve fund. Okay, so now another item was the deferral. This is a big for the SB 98 with the 0% COLA. So this, which means the district will have to monitor the cash flow closely and to borrow funds as needed to cover any cash deficit. So in June of 2020, which was last month, we didn't have to borrow any money because we had a healthy reserves. But now when we move to 2021, it's going to be more deferrals, as you can see. So these cash deferrals are ongoing, and the time frame of these deferrals stretched to all the way from February to November 2021. So the district will have to prepare cash flow projections, and these cash flow projections should be analyzed to determine if our borrowing is necessary and how much we will have to borrow. So the district plans to bring these cash flow projections in late September or maybe early October once we have actual numbers after we close the book. We are in the middle of closing the book at this point, so we don't have, we might have some variances at this point. Okay. So the next steps. So September 8th, we will bring the board 1920 unaudited actuals. Again, so the district has 3 budget reports, which is a budget adoption in June, first interim reports, and the second interim reports, all the numbers are budget numbers. So this unaudited actual is the actual numbers that it stays, that it doesn't change. Okay, so this is really critical to see where we are at really. Okay, on December 8th, 2021, the first interim budget reports. And now you will see our 2021 budget fluctuations. Let's say we have a lot of vacancies and we now have filled all the vacancies. By this time, we will have the better budget figures for 2021. In January 2021, we will have audited financial statement, meaning the auditor will audit what we have brought to you on September 8th board meeting. So March 9th, we have 2021 second interim budget reports. So here is the presentation, and any questions you may have.
Thank you, CBO Kim. That was very well. That was very full of information, and unfortunately, it did bring a highlight to our structural deficit and our ongoing financial difficulties. Board, I'm sure that there's questions. Please feel free.
I have a few questions. If you could put the multi-year table up. So this is sort of depressing, but I wanted to point out a couple of things that could change in the future. So one, and the first maybe a question is, we know that for this year, we don't benefit, excuse me, from the increased enrollment that we may experience because of our strong effort to bring in transfer students. So my understanding is the 2021 general purpose revenue number is based on last year's enrollment. But presumably in future years, we would benefit from that. So we would see that revenue go up if assuming that our enrollment numbers, I don't know how many students we ended up adding, but I believe it was well over 70. So it is possible that we would have more students in those other 2 years, so we would see more revenue those 2 years. I mean, I understand presenting it in a conservative way. I'm just saying one of our budget balancing strategies was enrollment increases, and that did not work out for us this year because of the nature of the crisis. But I think that strategy continues to be a viable one, assuming that the state gets back to funding us for our actual enrollment. And then the other is that there are two things. One, the state per student revenue could go up in future years, both because the allocation could go up, but also because a couple of years out, we might have additional revenue from schools and communities first coming in. So I appreciate that you're presenting what we know. I just wanted to highlight that there are some things coming in future years that give us some reason for optimism in that area. And that if COLA, for example, is not restored in future years, that they may continue to reduce our pension contribution increases, which could also help. So just, I think, something for us to keep in mind.
That's right. Right.
Ms. Kim?
Sure.
So are you basically saying that for the end of next school year, we need to prepare ourselves, that there will be, at this point, given these numbers, that the best thing we could do would be to seriously look at cutting $1 million in?
Right, that's one of the scenario that we will have to have. Again, the Trustee Hinckley mentioned, yes, with these assumptions that we have at this point, meaning 0% COLA for next 3 years, because that's what we have at this point, and with no increase in our enrollment. Or decrease in our enrollment, right? That could be another factor.
You mentioned that was one scenario. Are there other scenarios that you've already developed or are going to be presenting to us in September?
When I'm saying scenario, meaning if we don't expect September, no. September, no, because I'm going to just update more of the beginning fund balance, meaning where we are to start the balance. But later on, the other items will be more vulnerable. But at this point, this is really the best assumption we have and the scenario we have.
Thank you.
Other trustees? Okay, well, in the absence of any other questions or comments, I know that we all need to take sort of a deep breath, because it's hard to face again another year of having to decide on budget cuts. But I do think that the district needs credit for enrolling more students. We don't know where our enrollment is going to stand overall. There was a comment, a public comment at the very beginning of the meeting, about the possibility that that all public schools, Albany included, might see some decreases in enrollment as parents find alternatives that might work better for them, given all of the given the pandemic and all of the results of the pandemic. So I think that our enrollment, even though we made this strong effort, and I really want to congratulate the district office on that, and I think we'll see a lot of benefits for having our new transfer students, throughout the district. But anyhow, the benefit, at least this year, is not going to be financial. It's going to be in all of the other areas. So it is unfortunate to have to face probably another round of cuts, but it is essential that we adopt this 45-day budget revision. So if there's no further comments from the board, can I have a motion?
I move that we accept this 45-day budget revision as Ms. Kim presented it.
I second.
Second.
There are several seconds. Okay. Ms. Shen, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Student Board Member Mala?
Yes.
President Trutain?
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Vice President Duran?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, CBO Kim. That then brings us to our agenda item 13-7, amendment to agreement for design build services for the Marin Elementary School rebuild project by and between Albany Unified School District and Alton Construction.
And thank you, President Trutain. We have our very own maintenance and facility director here tonight, who stays on top of all these jobs, and it was a quick learn. And just in February, our own Ben Barago.
Good evening, Board President Trutain and Board of Education trustees and the public that are present this evening. This item is an amendment to the agreement for design build services for the Marin Elementary rebuild project between the district and Alton Construction. We're asking that the board approve Amendment 1 to the design build agreement. This additional scope of work is included or was budgeted for and will not draw on the project contingency. Now, the additional scope of work involves furniture, fixtures, and equipment design, or also known as FFE. Now, this design work is a separate process from the building design and is being added to the design build contract so that the FFE may be coordinated with the current design of various spaces. This will be done through meetings with either a stakeholder committee or subcommittee of users. Once the FFE is finalized, it will conclude with the procurement of furniture, which will be accomplished through a competitive bid process. The additional cost of this extra work, it will be paid from the 2016 Measure B funds. Are there any questions?
I hear no questions. Oh, excuse me, I just heard.
I was just going to make a motion. I don't have a question. I'll move to approve the amendment to the agreement for design build services for Marin Elementary with Alton Construction.
I'll second that. May we have a roll call?
Sorry. Student Board Member Mala?
Yes.
Trustee Hinckley?
Yes.
Trustee Doss?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Vice President Duran?
Yes.
And President Trutain?
Yes. And I would just add that this is the fourth project on bond measures B&E, and I think that we're learning how to do each project a little bit better than the last one. And I think that having the FF&E coordinated this way with the design build entity is really smart, because in the previous projects, sometimes we've had to, the right hand might not have known exactly what the left hand was doing. And there is a lot of necessary coordination between getting all of the furnishings and tech that's necessary to put into the classrooms to make it a functioning school. So I think this is a really wise move to go ahead and regularize this at the beginning of the project. So thank you very much, Director Borrego.
Thank you.
Okay, and that brings us to our item 13-8, Independent Contractor Services Agreement with Hazmat Doc.
With this item, we're asking, let me see if I'm unmuted. Okay. With this item, we're asking the Board of Education to approve independent contractor service agreement with Hazmat Doc to conduct a hazmat survey for the Marin Elementary School rebuild project. The purpose of the survey is to review the site and existing buildings, then conduct testing for potentially hazardous materials existing on the Marin Elementary School site. And this survey is required by California Title 22. One thing to note about this contract is the district's program manager, that is DCA, they solicited 3 bids from companies and received 2 responsive bids. They thoroughly reviewed those proposals and believe Hazmat Doc's proposal was the best value to the district in terms of scope, cost, and timeline. And therefore, they're recommending that this firm be approved. This work that's being done is broken down into 2 tasks, one being hazardous material survey, and the second task, the EPA Phase 1 site investigations. This amount was also budgeted for and is within the budget allocated for the scope of work. And it also will be paid from 2016 Measure B funds. Are there any questions?
A quick question. Have we used Hazmat Doc on any of our previous projects?
On the Ocean View construction project, this portion, the initial survey was done by a firm named Millennium Associates. And then what followed was the construction oversight of the removal of the hazardous materials. It went out to bid, and Hazmat Doc won that bid and is currently working on that project.
Thank you very much. I will move that we approve the independent contractor services agreement with Hazmat Doc for a survey of hazardous materials for the Marin Elementary School rebuild project.
I second that.
May we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Doss, excuse me, Student Board Member Mala.
Yes.
Trustee Doss.
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Vice President Duran.
Yes.
President Trutain.
Yes.
And Trustee Hinckley.
Yes.
Thank you, board. The motion passes unanimously. I have forgotten throughout the entire meeting to announce the results of our votes. I think that this meeting, all of our votes have been unanimous, just for the record. And that concludes our review and action section. We move to item 14, upcoming agenda items, matters introduced by the board. I will let me see. Oh, I will try to share my screen. Is everyone able to see that clearly? Okay. So on August 25th, we can look forward to another Road to Reopening Schools update. There was great interest expressed previously about getting some more information about what the waiver process is going to be from County of Alameda. At this point in time, County of Alameda is not issuing any waivers whatsoever, requiring all of the schools to stay in remote learning mode. We'll also have a special education update. And also we're going to hear from our project management team for our entire facilities bond project. Derivi Castellanos Architect, DCA, is going to come in and give us an update on what kind of seismic safety are we going to be getting in our projects. Both the Marin School project and the Ocean View project involve reusing some existing buildings. And those buildings will have what's called a voluntary seismic upgrade. And we wanted to get some more information in a public meeting to give to our community about what actually that means. So DCA is going to come in and give us this presentation. And we're also going to entertain the Superintendent, Chief Business Official, Contract Authority. And we also have some board workshops coming up, although these are not scheduled yet. I went ahead and put them on the slide. We have part 2 of our equity and education work. And we also have district goals and superintendent goals to set for this school year. And board, that brings us to
excuse me,
matters introduced by the board.
Yeah. Excuse me, before matters introduced, what happened to the students that were going to make a presentation?
They are, yeah, I just realized that they are here at August 25th. That was just simply, I deleted the August 11th material where they were originally scheduled. And so that's just a typo on my part. Am I able to, I can't do this right now. Yes, but that is definitely I really look forward to that at our August 25th meeting. We're going to have a student group come and present on diversify our narrative, looking for introducing new materials into our English courses from primary grades on up through graduation. So I apologize for that. That should be on this list for the August 25th meeting. And that brings us to items introduced by the board. I'm not sure that I heard any agenda items come up. So with that, we will adjourn then. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. It's not one.